Okay, we're at 7 o'clock. So I wish to acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples. Tumtumewaitin, or Belcara, is home to an ancestral village of the Tsleil-Waututh Nation. We are thankful to conduct our work within their territory. So I would call to order the meeting at 7:01 p.m. And I would look for an approval of the agenda for the regular council meeting of April 12th, 2021.
So
Please.
moved.
And I've got Councillor Wilder moving that and
Second.
Councillor. Okay, I'll go with Councillor Clark just because I saw her hand, and I'll come back to you later. Thank you, Councillor Drake. So that and that the motion would be that the agenda for the regular council meeting, April 12th, 2021, be approved as circulated. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll look to call the question.
You can't.
All in favor?
Well, let me sit down. Yeah, okay.
Aye.
You just listen.
Aye. Okay, and it looks like we've got all people unanimous. Okay, thank you.
Don't even know.
Sorry, there was some other chatter and I was trying to keep my focus there.
There's,
So-
Okay.
I'm sorry, can I just interrupt if, Paula, do you have the capability of muting everybody except council, or so that we don't have that over chat? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
So let's reach out to people as we're going through this part. If you can individually mute, that would be helpful. And then we'll open it up when we're looking to do some discussions and hear some feedback from people. Thank you, Councillor Wilder. So, okay, so April, so we've got the motion on the floor for April 12th, correct? Yes? Oh,
We all in favor.
That's been carried, your
yeah,
worship.
okay. And so moving to the adoption of the minutes, regular council meeting, March 22nd, 2021, reconvened to March 21st. So moved by Councillor Clark and seconded by Councillor
Oh, second.
Snell. And that the motion that we're looking to adopt is that the minutes from the regular council meeting held March 22nd, 2021, reconvened to March 25th, 2021, be adopted. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor, please say aye and raise their hand. And it looks like the ayes carry it. We're unanimous. Okay, thank you. And moving on to our delegations and presentations. It's my pleasure to be able to welcome Carrie Palmer Isaac, the chair of Coquitlam School Board, and Jennifer Blatherwick, school trustee from School District 43, Coquitlam, regarding the Child Care Task Force. So I want to thank you both for being here, and I'll open it up to you. And we have 10 minutes allocated for the presentation and then questions. And we may have them both from our council and also from members of the audience. So Carrie Palmer, if you would like to go ahead. Welcome to Belcara.
Thank you so much. What a lovely welcome and greeting. And I get to come to you tonight with good news, which doesn't happen very often. So I'm super excited. I want to bring thank you and appreciation on behalf of the school board. And our thanks and appreciation go not only to the village of Belcara, but also to Councillor Clark, Carolina Clark, for being your appointment from the village of Belcara to our task force. And we have actually concluded the work of our task force. So we're reaching out to all of our municipal partners and making a special effort to thank them and really acknowledge the work that went into this project. So to give a little bit of history around the task force, at the end of last term, we went as the school board with all 5 mayors from our municipalities to meet with the Minister of Education. And at that time, childcare was an incredible priority on all of our agendas. We noticed and recognized this need for childcare in the Tri-Cities that we were really having a hard time making space for. we had had to move or relocate some of the daycares and childcares on our grounds when we went over to our class size and composition. So we had worked very, very hard to actually keep all of them in place. But like many cities, we were really struggling, and many school districts really struggling to accommodate childcare. So we went as a great coalition, actually, of all mayors from the Tri-Cities and our villages, as well as the school board, to Minister Fleming. And at that time, we struck a task force to really look into how we could better meet the needs in our municipalities within the school district for childcare. And I like to believe, and I think Trustee Blatherwick will agree with me, that we brought great attention to this cause. And therefore, in the last mandate letter from the Premier, it came forward that childcare was going to be moved under the umbrella of education by 2023. So that's something that we are very, very excited about. We're a little bit overwhelmed at the moment of how we're going to accomplish that and administer that, but our staff is actually doing a great job at taking that on and making that happen. And so we are really, really excited with this new step for childcare in the Tri-Cities. And I have to thank all of my municipal partners in helping us accomplish that. I think it was our collaboration that really brought the attention to this cause. But I'm going to hand it over to Trustee Blatherwick as well, because she has some more on the ground experience with the task force. I will give her incredible credit here. She was thrown onto this task force within the first weeks of being elected, not having done this before, and jumped right in and has had enormous success. So I will hand it over to Jennifer, please.
Well, thank you so much, Carrie, for your kind words. I will echo your sentiments that it was the collaboration of 5 municipalities, the Coquitlam principals and vice principals, the DPAC, everyone who lives within Coquitlam SC43's district, coming together to talk about this issue as one that made a difference to the province. And some of the things that, you know, we were able to accomplish on the task force was all of us getting together in January 31st of last year, January 2021 or 2020, to talk about what we wanted to see going forward and what our thoughts were about how this was going to work going forward. And when we talk about daycare moving under the umbrella of the Ministry of Education, that doesn't necessarily mean that all childcare will become the responsibility of the Ministry of Education, just in the way that it is not now within CFD, where the Ministry of Childcare sits, but that they are asking us to prioritize school-aged care. And that will be a conversation with the province going forward. That is one of the motions up for the BC School Trustees Association is asking for more clarity and to ensure that we get the proper amount of funding and support from the province when that comes through. But the important part here is that we were all able to get together and talk about childcare, how it works in our communities, and give suggestions to the province in a constructive, positive way that reinforce what the families in our communities want and need. And so having them respond to that, to tell us that they were going to be moving quickly to adjust their regulatory framework so that school-aged care could be more easily delivered in schools, that they were going to be working with the federal government to find new funding to support childcare in schools, that they were going to continue to prioritize that in their upcoming budgets. I am not exaggerating when I say that our task force was an influence in that process. So I just want to say thank you so much for lending me Councillor Clark. She was incredibly enthusiastic about this, and I really deeply appreciated that, because as my board colleagues can tell you, that I never show up at a meeting without questions and facts and charts and graphs, and it can be a lot, because the learning required to talk about childcare is so deep, because it covers the quality of childcare, the technicalities of childcare, the framework, the needs within communities, and the needs of children. And Councillor Clark responded to that challenge with great enthusiasm. And anytime you want to lend us her for a task force, we will happily take her. So that is what we're here today to do, though, is to acknowledge the amazing work that happened, how your participation helped it happen, and to thank you and look forward to collaborating with you future. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you very much, Carrie, and thank you very much, Jennifer, for that incredibly important work. And I will have some comments to make later, but I would like to, if I could go to Councillor Clark, who's been done such a good job on this committee that's important to all of us. And so, Councillor Clark, if you would like to make any comments or thoughts or observations, I think it's very appropriate that you're the first speaker.
Much, Mayor Ross. Well, first, thank you so much, Carrie and Jennifer, for being here. Thank you for all the wonderful work you did, not just with that, but with everything else. I find that every time that I have to reach out to the school board, to Carrie or to Jennifer, they're very throughout when they talk to me. They always take the time, and I so appreciate. I see lots of wonderful work being done, not just on that, but on everything else. So I really appreciate it. We are lucky as a municipality to have both of you on our school district. I cannot stress that enough. So thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be part of that group. And for sure, if you need me for anything else, you know my number. I'm happy to help. So this is what was a passion of mine, because as you know, I came to Canada. When I came to Canada from Brazil, I was a nanny and 3 kids, and I saw the struggle that it was for the family to find a daycare space. So as soon as this came to my plate, I'm like, sure, I'll take it, because I know the struggle. That was 15 years ago when that happened, and we still have that, that situation. So I'm really happy to see the school district moving on this, and the province, and all the help and all the work that was accomplished together. So thank you, and thank you. I can't say enough good things about you too. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Clark. And I'll open it up at this time to any of our members of council, if they would like to speak. And I've got the screen up if anybody wants to make any comments or thoughts or observations. Okay, so we have a custom here of going to the audience to take some questions. And on this one, we will go out to the audience right now, and I would invite anybody in the audience that would like to signal by raising their hand. We'd love to hear any thoughts or observations you may have. Okay. Oh, we don't have someone coming on to the speakers list, but we have one of those wonderful thumbs up by Colleen McDonald. So I think that's a real tribute to all 3 of you for your work. So thank you, Colleen. Anybody else would like to make a comment? So I would like to, I want to thank Carrie very much for your leadership for SD 43 as our trustee, but also as the chair of the board. It's appreciated in so many ways, and I can't underestimate how challenging that leadership is right now. And you and Jennifer and other trustees and all the people that support you have kept the focus on students during COVID-19. But in particular, while that was happening, you've looked to move in with the assist of Councillor Clark to be able to do something that I think is so critically important. In my time as a teacher, in my time in leadership, and as my time recently working with the school district as a consultant, to be able to come together and to put all the people in the room in a positive way, from the local communities to school districts to the province and to the federal government. I think you're delivering something that what we look at for all our children is that we want a promising start to life, and there is nothing more critical to young kids and their parents to have secure and affordable childcare. If you ask people right now, one thing they struggle with, they would say they struggle with what you 3 on behalf of all of us have delivered. So on behalf of council and our community, I want to thank you very much for your work. And I will say that Councillor Clark is available on a short-term basis, but she's not available on a long-term basis. So thank you.
Thank you for your very thoughtful words, Mayor Ross, and to council. We really appreciate it. We will be reaching out to you in the future because we know that when we align our goals like this, we're able to make great things happen. So I
Yes.
don't think I could actually say anything better than what you have said, sir. So I'm happy to call it a night. And thank you again. We have a certificate for Councillor Clark that will come in the mail, of course, because we weren't able to do these in person, to my regret, but we will be sending that your way. So thank you again, and we look forward to working with you again in the future.
Yes, and we'll look forward to having you come back to our
Yes.
meeting at some time, both Carrie and Jennifer.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Clark, any last words?
No, just thank you again. Thank you
Okay.
very much, Carrie,
Awesome.
Jennifer.
Excellent.
And,
Have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you. And we always encourage that any guests that would like to stay, but we also know that you clock significant hours as members of the Coquitlam School Board. So we invite you graciously to at any time to feel comfortable to leave.
Thank you so much. I think both of us would love to attend, but we have a very long budget meeting tomorrow night. So I think we
You probably
probably
don't-
both have some light reading ahead of us. So
Okay, well, thank you very much. And
much.
thank you. And Jennifer, nice to meet you. Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
Take care,
Thank
Carrie.
you.
Bye-bye. Okay. So at this point, I think it would be that the appropriate that that the verbal report provided by Carrie Palmer Isaac, Chair, and Jennifer Blatherwick, School Trustee, School District 43 Coquitlam, regarding the Child Care Task Force be received for information, and I will look for a mover for that, and I'm looking to Councillor Clark. Thank you, and I would look to
Okay.
Councillor Wilder as a seconder. It's on the floor. Anybody, any discussion on that? Seeing none, then we'll look to call the question, and all those in favor, please indicate by holding your hand and saying aye. So
Aye.
I would say, and I want to note that it carries unanimously, and thank you, Councillor Clark, for your work on our behalf of our community. Okay, so we will then go to item 4.2. We have Shazana Haskell, Acting Director, Infrastructure Programs, and Faye Kramer, Senior Advisor, Government Relations and Public Affairs, TransLink, regarding the 2021 Municipal Cost Share Programs. So we are going to get a presentation by Shazana Haskell, and we're looking forward to that. And we're very appreciative of TransLink coming to our council meeting and coming and sharing some very, very important information. And I also want to thank Faye Kramer for coming and for being the initial linkage to make sure that as Belcare was progressing, that we were kept front and center in TransLink. And I think that speaks to the quality of the people that work for TransLink. So I will, Shazana, is it okay if I
Yes.
hand it over to you now? And
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. That's quite
Yeah.
kind of you. It's saying that the host has disabled participating screen sharing.
Oh.
So I can't share my screen to do the
She's-
presentation.
She's working on it for you.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
great.
sorry.
Maybe I'll just fill the time. My name is Shazana Haskell. I am the Acting Director of Infrastructure Programs at TransLink. And so this is a department within the engineering division. My team oversees our municipal cost share programs. And so that's what I'm going to be presenting here today. I'm going to try to share my screen now. Bear with me. I'm used to Microsoft Teams. So this is.
take your time.
Okay, great. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect, wonderful. Okay, so I did my intro. So my presentation today is really going to be a very quick overview of our cost share programs. They can be quite detailed and there's a lot of intricacies here, but I'm really going to get into the specifics of kind of what the village can participate in the next couple of weeks. And so this is going to be a little bit quick. So please feel free to ask questions at the end or even through if you feel comfortable.
Sure. And Shazana, we have a tight 10-minute timeline,
Yep.
but I'm actually keeping the time tonight. So I don't want you to rush where you feel that you're not able to give the extent of it. So I really, we always find our presenters are very good in terms
Okay.
of, yeah. So thanks.
Great. Perfect. Okay. All right, so our municipal cost share programs, the reason why TransLink has these cost share programs is to build infrastructure for all the various modes throughout the region. And these are for smaller type of infrastructure projects, minor capital projects, anything from multi-use path to road widening, to sidewalks, to interchanges, intersection changes. And so these are not the mega projects, but the smaller municipal projects that TransLink likes to cost share on. So in the funding for all these cost share programs came through the Mayor's Vision, which started in 2017. And through this investment plan, we identified 5 years worth of funding. Phase 1 is shown in blue and phase 2 is shown in green. And so these are the 5 years of the cost share funding and what was available to our municipal partners. Now, there are quite a lot of funding programs, so I'm going to try to explain this chart for you. So on the top here, we have in the blue, we have the municipal funding programs. We're just calling it that. And so in the green section, we call these our state of good repair programs, things we need to do to keep our infrastructure going. And so that's the operation and maintenance box there. Underneath that, you'll see O and M, and so that's operation and maintenance, and R is pavement rehabilitation. And so these are for the automatic funding that we provide each municipality who has a section of their road on the major road network. And Belcarra does have a section of road, Bedwell Bay Road, that is on the major road network. And so TransLink provides annual funding for the maintenance of this road. Under that, we have another cost share program, which is the structures program. And so those are for structures that bridges, retaining walls and culverts that support the major road network. And this is a competitive program that you have to apply for. Now, in the purple section, we have the improvement programs. And so I'm very sorry for all the acronyms. The names are very long, but the MRNB program is the program, you can think of it as the road type of programs, anything for road improvements. The B at the end of it actually stands for bike, because there are quite a lot of improvements that are bike related when it comes to road upgrades. Then specifically, we actually have a BICS program, which is Bicycle Infrastructure Capital Cost Share program. And this is for cycling infrastructure throughout the region. Very similar to MRNB, but it's available to all municipalities, those who don't have the major road network in their jurisdiction. Then we have the WIT program, which is Walking Infrastructure to Transit. And so those are walking type of improvements, sidewalks, crosswalks, curb letdowns, those things that help support that first and last mile connection for transit users. And then we have BSR, which is the Bus Speed and Reliability Program. So those are improvements to the roadway that help with the efficiency of bus movement throughout the region. So today, I'm going to be specifically talking about those in red. And so that's the MRNB, BICS, and WIT programs. This slide is really just to give you a link to where you can find more information on this if you are very interested on all the projects we have funded through these cost share programs since 2017. So on an annual basis, we fund about 120 to 130 various projects throughout the region. And so this map has from 2014 to 2019. We have additionally funded another 200 and some odd projects from 2020, and hopefully we're just doing 2021, which is what I'm here to talk to you about today. So this shows the entire portfolio of what is available under the cost share programs under 2021. OMR is that automatic funding I was talking about for the major road network, and that's about $60 million. So the cost share programs on what is available through application is about 64 million available through all these various types of programs, these 5 cost share programs for specific type of infrastructure. And those are not automatic. Those you have to actually put in an application for. Okay, so for Belcarra, what was available is under our cost share programs, there's that green section, which was the state of good repair. Those were OMR. That was automatic. So this year in 2021, Belcarra will receive $113,000 of operation and maintenance funds for the major road network. You don't have to apply for that. Now, under MRNB, BICS, and WIT, we have these programs MRNB is specifically an allocated program. And so what that means is TransLink will provide funding to a municipality. We designate certain amounts per municipality based on their population and employment. Now, that funding is available to you, but you must apply for a project to access those funds. So the village has actually already applied for 2 projects worth $57,000. So that's the Bedwell Bay Cat's Eyes and the safety barriers. And so those are road safety projects, which is completely aligned with the MRNB program. So what that means though, is that there's BICS and WIT allocated. So these 2 programs for cycling and walking have a component that's allocated that we automatically will give to a city based on your population and employment. But then there's a portion that is completely competitive. So what happens is if a city doesn't use their allocated portion, meaning they don't apply for funding and they do not have a project that they want to use, then we'll take those funds and put it into our competitive program. And our competitive program is extremely competitive. So we have, we are 200% oversubscribed. So the ask for funding is 2 times more than how much funding we have available. That's because for every application under the competitive program, you can get $600,000 of funding through that. So it's a high amounts of money that you can get through competitive. Now, this is where we wanted to speak to you about, because if the village does not submit an application for BICS and WIT or MRNB, all of these funds will go into those competitive programs. And so a total here you can show is about $129,000 that is available to access through these allocated funds, but we need an application. Okay, so what type of project could you apply for? So the total project cost, because we actually have a provision, these are one of the many, many rules in our programs. We have a small provision that talks about small community cost share. So small communities, which the village is, get automatically 75% cost share with TransLink. So any project you submit with us will cost you up to 75%. So that means you can apply for a project with a total project cost of $172,000. And so in order, the best way to access your MRNB, BICS, and WIT is to build a multi-use path, because that actually is a project that spans over all 3 types of programs. If you just do a sidewalk, then you can only access funds through MRNB and WIT. If you just do a cycling path, then you would just get MRNB and BICS. But if you want all 3, you got a multi-use path is kind of your best bet. Now, the multi-use path has to be a minimum of 2.7 to preferably 3 meters, and it must be paved. But there's a whole bunch of other things that you can also do. You could do wayfinding signage, you could do lighting, you could do bike racks, you can do nice particular signage or pavement markings if you wanted. Anything aesthetically is also acceptable. There's a lot of different things you could do through our cost share programs other than just build the multi-use path. So this is why the timing was very critical. Our call for applications was on November 2nd. Then we had the deadline on January 29th. So we have received a total of 142 applications through all of our municipalities. The ask for funding is 74 million, and we only have 64 million available. In the last 2 months, February and March, my team has gone through the process of reviewing all those 142 applications. And now we're actually at a stage where we can say which projects we'd like to move forward with and which will not be receiving TransLink funding. Now, this is why the critical timing is really important here. The actual projects that are going to be put forward for funding goes to what we call a steering committee with other directors, my counterparts, and that's where we'll present, these are the projects for each of the municipalities. So there's a tiny window here of about 2 weeks in which we could still accept applications, but only through the allocated funding. If a municipality has not submitted a project through allocated funding, we're making this exception for to get those 2 weeks to get an application in. Because if we don't, then we'll just put that funding to a competitive project, and that project, another municipality would get those funds. So this is the really critical thing here. So this is a little bit more details on the project eligibility. So you see MRNB is specifically through upgrades to the roads, and you've already had 2 applications here. BIC's eligibility is that we have maps which show where in your municipality you will see eligible locations for funding, and locations matter. But for Belcarra, the entire area is eligible for funding. You'll see types of facility here, class 1 and class 2. This talks about the level of comfort, all providing cycling facilities for all ages and abilities. And so that's really important because we're trying to get a high standard for cycling throughout the entire region. So you'll see here that class 3, anything that's unprotected, the meaning a painted line on the road, is not acceptable for funding for TransLink. When it comes for WIT, walking infrastructure to transit, there's a smaller section of Bedwell Bay Road that is available, but we can make an exception, knowing that we could be a little bit more flexible on the location wise, should it be a multi-use path, because multi-use paths you do need that extent of it, and just focusing on that one section might not be as useful as building out a longer section in another place. So we can be flexible on this location area. So the application form is really the key here. The application form, you need to submit, it can be quite extensive, but we really are focused on 4 criteria that need to be satisfied. The project eligibility, so are you building a paved path? Yes or no, those kind of questions. Is it wide enough? Is it the 3 meters or is it 2 meters? Those kind of questions need to be answered. The readiness, oh, actually I have slides for this. Hold on, let me go through it. So this talks about project readiness, which talks about can you complete this in the 4 years? And that, because you have 4 years to complete the project. You actually don't have to complete it this year. We will hold the funds for you until you do complete it in that 4-year time. So any projects funded this year, you have until December 31st, 2023 to complete it. And so this talks about other aspects of project readiness that you'll have to complete through the application form. And again, this is project design, which talks about conforming to that 2.7 to 3 meter width. That's really critical, especially for multi-use paths. Project priority. And so this is really critical for us as TransLink to know that a municipality is putting forward a project that they actually do intend to deliver. And so we're looking for, usually we look for budget line items, OCPs, or any sort of plans, that's transportation plans that say you want to do these projects, but council resolutions are also acceptable. So anything that shows that, yes, indeed, the municipality wants to move forward, we will accept that. And so these are the next steps. If you would like to access your MRNB, BICS, and WIT funds, we do need an application form, and we do need to receive it by April 23rd. And that's, again, because of the timeline. Our director's steering committee meeting is April 30th. So that's when we have to really meet that deadline and do make sure we have all the projects that we would like to fund this year put forward. And that was it for my presentation.
That was great. Thank you very much, and very, very thorough. And we're very appreciative of TransLink coming. And TransLink, obviously, from those slides is, I guess, an acknowledgement of our municipality has gone through a by-election of being able to not only provide some flexibility, but reach out and connect with us. So I think I have some specific questions, but I think it's probably important at this point, if we look to, I'll ask one very quick one, and then I'd like to open it up to my counselors and then to the audience. In terms of the 4 years,
Yeah.
when you would spread a project, or we could spread a project out for 4 years, that also means that we could divide the cost over 4 budget years, correct?
Yep.
Is that the thinking?
You could,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Like your portion of the cost, yes.
Yes, our portion of the
Yeah.
cost.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'd like to do, not that I don't have more questions, but I'd like to be able to identify, and I've got one counselor, and there may be someone else that likes this. I now have 2 counselors. Okay. So we'll ask Counselor Drake to go forward and to pose any questions, thoughts, or observations, and then Counselor Clark, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. First, let me congratulate you on summarizing the Encyclopedia Britannica in 10 minutes. A remarkable performance. And can you correct me if I'm wrong? I mean, first, it seems to me extremely generous and accommodating of you to recognize the unique circumstances we're under. So just an expression of appreciation for flagging this opportunity, however limited the time frame may be. It does seem these programs are well suited to some of the interests that have been expressed by residents in our community. And as you undoubtedly know, this is heavily forested, quite rural area, small municipality. But walking, biking, those are high priorities for a lot of residents that we have. Another concern, though, that I think you flagged here, I just wanted to get your reaction to it. Safety is a major issue for us because of the number of people walking. We do not currently have anything remotely similar to safe pathways adjacent to our MRN road or other roads for that matter, but the volume is very heavy on the MRN road by our standards. And so safety is a concern. And I've been curious, when you get to the section on crosswalks, which I believe is your WITT one, you cite that as new and improved pedestrian crossings. 2 questions. One thing that has impressed me recently at a number of locations is the impact of speed displays to vehicles, so that as you approach, you gain an indication of what speed you're doing. And then within the limits of technology, there's an effort to either chastise you for traveling too quickly or give you a green light to say you're going at a reasonable speed. And strangely enough, that actually affects people's behavior. And I'm curious as to whether, if we wanted to do a speed display, or again, I've seen at schools particularly crosswalks where they use flashing lights, and these are typically solar powered standalone units, so that when someone presses the crosswalk, the lights flash on either side of the crosswalk. Given the winding nature of our roads and steepness of the roads in some areas, I think there are a few areas where it would be very useful to have that happening when someone is walking across the road. So would those be eligible under the WITT program or services similar to that?
Yes, absolutely. It'd be eligible under the MRNB program. If you were doing a multi-use path, it's also eligible under the BICS program. So it's eligible under all of them. Safety is one of our number 1 things that we look after. And so absolutely we would fund that.
Okay, and if I might wander into one other area where I have been periodically chastised for even raising the topic, again, speed control. If we have crosswalks, is it acceptable to have the crosswalks raised modestly so that you're conscious you're driving over a crosswalk as you travel along an MRN road? And that's where I've had the cautionary notes raised.
Yeah, so yes, absolutely. So we would have to, if it's on the MRN and you are at some point reducing the capacity, so that means that you are doing something to slow the road down, it actually requires TransLink's approval. So if you submit an application to us and it says, we would like to do a raised crosswalk, we will look at that and we will come back to you and say, okay, please explain to us why you would like a raised crosswalk. And you tell us the safety reasons, you provide a document from a traffic study or something, a warrant or something that expresses to us that if this is a concern and this is how we would like to solve this. And then we would approve it as part of the application form. So
Or-
it's something you would have to do a little bit of background, a little bit of work to provide us with that understanding of why you're doing that and whether or not it's warranted, and to understand the impacts of that on your roadway.
And if we were to do that this year,
Mhm.
it sounds like we'd have to finish that tomorrow. Because I mean, as it is, you come in to give us this at a very last minute. I mean, it would seem to me more reasonable for us to deal with non-controversial issues at this stage, given how little time there is.
We can be flexible. I get to oversee all the programs the projects that come in. So if you submitted an application, you said this is something we would like to consider, what we can do is say, okay, you would like to consider this, here's the time for you to do the study, and then we'll just put a note in your application form that this is approved based when we receive the appropriate information to approve it. So we can be flexible. Absolutely. You don't have to do everything in the 2 weeks. What we actually need is just that one form to be filled out that says, yeah, we are applying. This is how much we would like. This is what we're building. Here is the fact that we are actually want to move forward with it. Here's the council resolution supporting that we want to do this. Even the design, we can be a little bit flexible because I know it's only 2 weeks. It's very hard to get a design in place. So absolutely, we can be flexible on that. So I'm very happy to work with your staff to see how much we need, and I can get my team to work with them as well. So
Great. Okay, thank you so much for the answers.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Bruce. And we'll go to Councillor Clark, please.
Thank you. Great presentation. So I echo my colleagues' comments here. Well done. And so I just have one quick question. It says here on the potential project details, the total project cost of $172,833. So was there an assessment done of that section by TransLink to come to that total? Or how did that?
Yeah, good question. So the total you'll see there actually, so if you look at the line below, it says 129,000 is how much is allocated to you. And so the allocated total in my presentation was based on MRNB, which is one program, how much was remaining. And then there was these other two programs, BIX and WIT. And so all of these are, all the allocated portions are calculated based on your population and employment. And so we came to the $129,000 based on that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all for now. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else on council? Okay, then maybe what I'll do at this point is if I'll get just the hands drop down from the two councillors who have spoken. Thank you. And then at this point, we will move out to the audience. And if there are people I'm watching, and if there's anybody that has a thought or a comment, and then if not, we'll come back to council. So Colleen McDonald, please.
I think you're muted.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Susanna, that was an excellent presentation. You really explained to us the extent of what TransLink has to offer. I am involved with Hub Tri-Cities Cycling Group, and very, very keen on getting some safe walking and cycling infrastructure for Belcarra. It's time. We've lived on a rural road for a long time, and we're seeing a lot more traffic, and a lot more people want active transportation. So I thank you for your presentation and for this opportunity. This is amazing. This is a golden opportunity for us. And I want to thank our council and our mayor for their leadership in jumping into this at such a late state. So I guess we're on a very tight timeline. So my question would be, is there any design help that we could get right away, or as long as we just say that we would like to do it, and if there's any kind of design help that is available, I think that would be really important to our community. So I'll just leave it in your hands and council's hands to let us know what to do.
Sure. I can respond to the
Yes,
design.
absolutely.
Okay, yes.
Anna, thank you.
So we do like to provide services to, especially for our smaller communities. So if you do need help with design, absolutely, we can make that available to you. What we actually need, we would have started this back in fall, but we can still do that after the fact, as long as we know that you do want to move forward with a project. Absolutely, we can bring a consultant on board to provide those services and to help walk you through the process. We would love to do that. I too had the privilege of visiting Belcarra to speak to Lorna a couple years ago, and I too would love to see the use of these funds there. So it would be great. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Shazana, and thank you, Colleen, for your comments and for your leadership on this too. Thank you. Anybody else in the audience that would like to? I've got Dana and Klaus, or Klaus.
Oh, you're also muted.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yep.
Perfect.
Great.
Exceptional delivery, nice presentation. Thanks very much. The enthusiasm is infectious, and I want to thank all the council for bringing this forward. I would echo exactly everything that Colleen McDonald has spoken about. We've waited a long time for this, and the issues that you bring forward are exceptionally valuable for this community. Thanks so much. I have one question only, and this is the sort of thing that I expected Bruce to have mentioned. How many meters do you think we will be able to get from $173,000?
Oh, I'm not sure I have an answer to that question. I will counter with that by saying as much as we possibly can. So I don't know. We know the costs for some municipalities can be quite high. We're seeing $700,000 per kilometer sometimes, but that's because they have to buy properties, they have to move their existing sidewalks and those kind of things. I think it's a little bit different in this case. We actually had the village of Anmore do a similar type of project, and I do think I don't know the exact length, but it could have been about a kilometer or so with about the same amount of funding. But I think there was some extra enhancements in there. So I don't know 100%, but we'll try to get as much as we can out of that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Shazana. And we've got Stuart Novak, I believe, is next on the list. And Stuart, you've done a lot of work to forward these applications, and I really want to recognize that in this public arena, and please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was going to save this for a little bit later, but the opportunity seemed to be the right time. Also, I'd like to thank Shazana as well. She's given us a lot of help in the past, and she continues to eagerly give us every time we call her up. She's always eager to help. But I just wanted to say that there definitely are some feasibility issues with respect to, especially if you're going to be thinking about the multi-use path, 2.7 meters. There's areas that it seems like some of the public has focused on around I would say the 3800 block, or as Bedwell Bay winds down the hill, there's definitely property line issues. There's definitely some serious engineering type of issues, hurdles that have to be dealt with. In fact, for a 2.7 meter path in that particular area, there's a lot of obstacles, and it may not be the area where we could accomplish a multi-use type path. If we're thinking about a multi-use path, the one area that that may be able to accomplish would be from the Midden Road on Bedwell Bay, as that trail to go to Jughead Trail. As it crosses, there's a crosswalk there, and from that point all the way to the tennis court or multi-use court. That would be very expensive as well and require engineering and a little bit of surveying as well, and probably fill. So the cost would build up very quickly, because you'd be talking about building up the road shoulder. But that's one area where it's possible to have a multi-use path. And obviously, with some of the smaller things like improved pedestrian crossings and wayfinding and things like that, of course, we can always use more money for that, and we definitely can use it. But closer to the village entrance, all the way to about the fire hall, that's extremely challenging, even if it's going to be for BICs, for bicycle infrastructure funding. Very, very challenging.
But your worship, if I could just interject,
Yes.
I think that's maybe what your design team would help us to determine. Is that correct, Shazana?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Sorry, I wasn't sure if you were speaking to me.
Yeah,
No.
so I just don't think we need to have those details tonight, but I think,
Yeah.
thank you, Stuart, for that.
Yeah.
But I think we could work that out.
Absolutely. And I will say that there are lots of other municipalities where they can achieve 2.7 or 3 meters throughout the whole section. If there are some sections that are absolutely going to cost you $1 million because there's a cliff there and you need to, excavate the cliff, absolutely, we can find some flexibility in certain sections for it to be lower. But it really, we do need to work that through with the design team.
Thanks.
And I've got to, I'll just add myself, I've got to say that TransLink, in terms of, I was at a public meeting and they were talking about some pieces that were in place for larger municipalities, and ours is a smaller one, and we're the smallest in the whole metro. So I raised the question about, I really like their other programs, but I asked them what we could do in terms of getting some assistance. And I was very impressed in the live TransLink meeting that both one of the senior executives and Sarah Ross both responded to not only our municipality, but another one, probably bigger than ours, the city of North Vancouver, and said, look, we actually believe that we have people, and I think Shazana and her team are an example of that, who come in and not to direct you, but to assist on the ground, whereas the mayor of the city of North Van indicated that they don't have a lot of people to be able to do that. Now, they're under their different funding program, but I think the fact that TransLink reaches out and says that we will come, we'll actually take a look. So the first year, we could actually do planning on this completely. So there's no, like, I always get a little cautionary about design and build programs in 2 months. I just think that's a recipe for challenges. But when you have a 4-year time span, I think that's a piece. And I've got to say that I haven't worked with many large organizations who reach out to a place the size of Belcarre. And when I came on, they said, you remember, you only have 1 vote. And what I said was, we're actually fine with 1 vote. We just want a place at the table and to talk. And I think that table on behalf of our village has been incredible, what TransLink from Shazana and her team and from others have offered. So why don't I go right now to anybody else in the public that would like to make a comment? And then if not, we can come back and talk as council. So I'm watching, not seeing anybody here. So we will come back to council. Anybody on council want to make any comments? Okay, so I'd like to make a comment. I ran recently in the election to become mayor of Belcarre, and I was posed a question about, are we going to fix roads? And I said, yes, we're going to fix roads. We're going to do the fundamentals. You can't leave roads and just allow them to atrophy. You need to be able to fix them. But I also think there's a piece too, that when you fix a road, you also need to be conscious about other pieces of safety. So the work around the cat's eyes that did not come in our big meeting, but came from, I'd say, probably 10 individuals bringing it up. And I would say a little bit, some of them, the common denominator, they were like myself, getting a little bit old, and at night having cat's eyes is a wonderful thing. So we've got a little bit of safety there that talks to what it's like for drivers. And then on the safety barriers, we've also got a piece that talks about safety for drivers and safety potentially for people walking, but really in those places, there's not much of a margin. But I think that this program here speaks to safety for people that are walking, that are biking, that are pushing a stroller and want to be able to connect within our community and want to be able to do it safely and want to be able to do it more than just in the good weather months. So for me, I actually think good communities lead from a perspective where they're doing things that bind communities, that make them safety, and that definition of safety extends beyond simply safety for cars and for roads. And I also think this, and I read a while back, that there is a common feature for people that are mayors in Metro Vancouver. And it is that there is a bit of a Scottish heritage to them. And with that comes for a real look at being careful with money. And I actually believe that the good work done by John McEwen to move it from 50%, working with TransLink and with others, to 75%, has put us into the place right now. And in talking with the other mayors from the from Bowen Islands and Lions Bay, I think one of the things that we as a council, we as a community need to grapple with is we actually have the time right now to be able to, thanks to TransLink, to be able to make the move to pay for our own path, or we collectively in Belcarra can make the move not to do that. And we can generously donate to another community to build their path. And so my Scottish heritage says that when you get 75% offered and you pick up 25% and you can accomplish a number of things, I hope that tonight, when we get to that appropriate place, that we will be able to find a way to move forward on behalf of safety, not just simply for cars and people driving them, but for people that are walking and connecting with their community. So I'm fine if others want to add, and if not, we may be at a point where we're at we need to go to the next step. So anybody else on council? Okay, so Shazana.
Yes.
On behalf of our council, when they told me at TransLink that they had people ready to come in and help, I didn't quite envision you, but you definitely meet that piece about coming in and working in a cooperative, collaborative way. And I love the fact when you talk about where it will be, that it could be adjusted a little bit, it could be changed a little bit, because we tend to do things in Belcarra that are a little bit not traditional. And so I would say you've done a wonderful job of providing us information. You've given us a real sense if we were to work with you, and you bring that spirit that's in Belcarra of can do when it makes sense to us. So I really want to thank you. And I also want to, at this point, I want to also recognize one other person, and I believe she's on right now. And she is the call that I got out of the blue after I was elected, Faye Kramer. And so you don't need to light up and show your screen, but I want to acknowledge the work you did. Tremendous as government relations to work out and to say not that you missed the deadline, but if the Village of Belcarra would like to work with TransLink, we're here to work with you. And so thank you very much for your reaching out and all your work. And I know you do it away, but you do it in a very good way. So both of you, thank you very much on behalf of our council and behalf of our whole community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This was a very wonderful experience. I have to say, you filled me with more enthusiasm. I feel very honored to have come here today to speak to you. I didn't even tell you the best part, that in future years, when we hopefully have more funding through this cost share programs, you can just add on top of this and increase funds and collect funds for 3 more years, and then you will get billed even longer. So I didn't even lead with that, but I just want you to know, if we can help, if I can help, I'm going to help, and we will hopefully build this. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, everybody. And we, at this point, we've got a motion that the presentation provided by Shazana Haskell, Acting Director, Infrastructure Programs, and Faye Kramer, Senior Advisor, Government Relations and Public Affairs, TransLink, regarding the 2021 municipal cost share programs be received for information.
So moved.
And we have Councillor Wilder moving.
Second.
I'll go to Councillor Drake on this, but it was almost a photo finish. Any comments on that? People are, looks like council's ready to vote on that. So I would ask if you're in favor of the motion that adopting the motion I just read, you raise your hand and say aye, please.
Aye.
Okay, and I would note that it's unanimous. Thank you very much. And we will now go to, and Shazana, you're welcome to stay, and Faye, you're welcome to stay if you'd like. We're going to go to Ken, and you're going to work with us on item 5.1, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and everyone in attendance, council members. There is a report on the agenda that iterates much of what Shazana has already went through. And it also highlights a draft motion that council could consider to show their commitment to moving forward with an application to TransLink to access the funding. And as Shazana has already said, there's much flexibility being provided in terms of what would have to be submitted initially in terms of an application. And I think that if council would like to consider the motion that's being recommended or a form of that motion, that would allow Stuart to move forward with an application that would meet the guidelines of TransLink and would start the process in motion.
Okay. Thank you, Ken. And I've got Councillor Drake and Councillor Clark. Councillor Drake, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, and thank you, Ken, for this. I have to say, it's one of the most impressive presentations that I've seen on a program such as this, especially when you're talking a government organization and you are behind their deadlines for process. So, I mean, I'm very, very impressed with the people that spoke to us. I think it's an opportunity we're not likely to see again. And I want to thank everyone who's been involved. And I know that includes you, Your Worship, in ensuring this opportunity still came forward, given how late in the day we were seeking it. So I'm quite happy with the recommendation that Ken has provided. It's not prescriptive in detail, but it indicates council's willingness to invest 25% of the cost of this, and I think it's an excellent investment. So I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, so do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Clark seconding the motion. Thank you both. So the motion is now on the floor. Do we have any speakers from council?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, yes, absolutely. Go ahead, Councillor Clark.
Thank you. So once again, I like to echo Bruce's comments, Councillor Drake's comments, Mayor. It's being, you've been elected just recently, and now we have this on the table. So I like to thank TransLink and the flexibility around this project for us in such a unique situation that we are. But I like to thank you too, because this wouldn't have happened without you. So I really appreciate it. I'm good to vote on this. And just one further comment. I understand what Stuart was trying to say about, I also have the same concerns on some parts of Bedwell Valley. Perhaps we wouldn't be able to do such a path, but I think it's, I think we got to start somewhere. So it's good to start and learn the challenges as they come. But I totally understand what he was saying, and I agree with him. So I'm looking forward to this. And again, Mayor Ross, thank you very much. That was quite the accomplishment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clark and Councillor Drake. Do we have any of the other councillors that would like to speak on the motion? Okay, so our practice is to go out to the audience, and anybody in the audience that would like to speak. Okay, I will return to council, and I will put my name on the list. I don't see anybody else on council, and I would just say very quickly that I think that a council that is able to do things that meet a broad set of objectives is a council that actually is able to provide really good leadership. And I want to acknowledge the kind words, but in this work, no one ever does it alone. And if they look to do it alone, it usually means it doesn't go forward. So we've got a very strong team, and I have actually said my words in support of this. So I will just be indicating that I will be voting in the affirmative, and I'm very grateful for the two councillors that have, one, moved the motion and seconded it. So I will look to see if there's any other members of council, and not seeing any, I will look to call the question. And if you are in favor, if you could say aye and raise your hand. So aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I am going to note that that is unanimous, and I would like to thank and Shazana and Faye may be gone, and if they are, really appreciate that, but thank you again. And I would like to thank the people that spoke up on behalf, and thank you very much for our council for doing it, and particularly for staff. And Ken, you actually, and Stuart, you've done some very, very good work to put this council in a place to be able to do some things. So thank you. Okay. Okay. So we've concluded that matter, correct? Lorna?
Yes, your worship.
Okay, good. So we will then, let me just check the time. And I checked the time because at 9 o'clock, we will take a break for about 10 minutes just to acknowledge both those on council staff and in the audience who may need a break for 10 minutes, but we'll do it at about approximately 9 o'clock. We'll find a place that makes sense, but I just wanted to highlight that for people. Okay, so Ken, we'll go over to you to walk us through the grant request. Please.
Okay, Mr. Mayor. This grant requests have come forward from council for council's consideration, and they were indicated on previous meetings as well. And there's some information as to what grants have been provided over the past 3 years, 2018, 19, and 20. in the report. The one request that wasn't on a previous report was the Anmore Elementary request, which is now listed as part of the total requests from each of the groups. So just to run through the groups that are requesting some grant funding, it's the Coquitlam Search and Rescue, the Heritage Woods Secondary School request, the Communities Embracing Restorative Action, Softball BC, Crossroads Hospice Society, Habitat for Humanity Greater Vancouver, and Anmore Elementary. So council in the past has not used up all of its grant funding, but there is a budget in the provisional budget of approximately $4,700 to accommodate grants that council would like to consider. So council can now consider these requests. There may be other requests that come forward throughout the year as well, on their own as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Ken. So you've given us a sense of what's available in the different ones. And so do we have, we can go through them individually, or we can have a counselor identify one and look to get some support. What's the pleasure of council? Councillor Clark?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Ross. I think I believe it's good. You know, like I said in the past, a small amount, just a symbolic amount, to show our appreciation and our support. So if the amount is at 100 to 150, then I would be okay to say yes to all of them. So yeah, I just want to know the feeling of council on that. Thank you.
Let me just so Councillor Clark, I like your idea. There is one on here, and I don't think there's any in particular. I mean, there's some that really capture my heart in the same way that they do for different people. But I will say that the Communities Embracing Restorative Action, the CERA Society grant application, is one that I understand for years. They do restorative justice with youth throughout the whole district. And my understanding that number has never changed that much. And I believe at a time, it was always provided because it was what was called the old Simon Fraser kind of, when they divided things up between the municipalities and say, you're gonna, if you're all gonna support something, here's what Coquitlam's amount is, here's what POCO's amount is, and then here's what Anmore and Belcarre. And so for me, and I always say I'm one of five, so I'll sit with anything, but this would be one where I actually see some of the pieces. And I read the other day, they're looking for schools to teach more about anger management during this time. And I think this is a community organization. It's nonpartisan. I think they've delivered for years. And so my hope is, I agree with that, a small amount, but on this one, I would like to make a bit of an argument or a bit of a support for maybe having this one. But again, I'll sit with where council is.
Okay, so just to respond back, Mayor Ross, sorry, I wasn't clear enough. I meant that amount for the to be determined pieces. So keep the 250 for Anmore Elementary, as well as the 353 for Sarah, and just the one, the TBD to be like between 100 and 150. Sorry. Thank you.
No, that's fine. You never need to apologize, even if we're together on that one, but even if we weren't, we're fine. Thank you. And I'll take my hand down and try and show some good. Councillor Drake.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I agree with you on these. The only unusual one in my mind, and I can understand it, is Softball BC, but they face a very unique circumstance. And if someone takes the time to approach us, I'm a big fan of, even in our small and modest way, that we need to be part of the larger community and represent that by making some of these grants. And the amount is very modest in any event. So I'm supportive of these. Again, the only one where I might have questions would be Softwall BC, but again, I appreciate they face a very unique year. And if they take the time to reach out, I know how much volunteer effort goes into providing those type of opportunities for youth. So I'm supportive of what we have here, with the to be determined figures to be modest amounts. I'm thinking 100 to 150, but until we hear further from them.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Drake. And I've got Councillor Snell, and then I have Councillor Wilder in that order. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship.
You're welcome.
Looking through the list here, the two that jump out at me as maybe worth slightly more consideration would be the Crossroads and also the Coquitlam Search and Rescue. They both affect the community 12 months a year as opposed to a special occasion. So I think there's a good case to be made for supporting them to a greater degree. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Snell. Thank you. Councillor Wilder.
Thank you very much. I agree as well with Councillor Snell here. I'm more inclined with ongoing community services as opposed to a one-offs. I think the one-offs, a token, whether it's be 100 up to 150. But even if I add all these up, if we did a token of 150 for the TBDs, 353 or even a wee bit greater than that for communities embracing restorative. And then adding an annual or elementary. I don't see that they've even ever asked us for a grant. I go back in the last few years prior, but that still only brings us to 1,350. So we're still like well under what we had budgeted for, well under. I agree with I'm wondering whatever happened to Eagle Ridge Hospital or Port Moody Secondary, Heritage Woods. Oh, Heritage Woods did ask, sorry, that they didn't ask previous time. Sierra, that we didn't give them last year at all. We gave them the 2 years prior to that. So I'm good with a token for the one-offs, but the ones that are ongoing, like SAR, Search and Rescue, Sierra, I'm happy to increase those, make them either constant or greater, and we're elementary. They've never asked us for anything. And all of our children have gone there. My grandchildren went there. So, so.
Yeah. No, good,
Thanks.
Good point. So we've had a good discussion. Do we want to formulate a motion? Does that make sense, or?
I would recommend that, Your Worship.
Yes, yeah, I'm just thinking I think we found quite a few common spots. So why don't we try to motion? We've got, I believe, Councillor Drake and maybe Councillor, well, the councillor will hear your motion first.
Okay, so from what I've heard, and I agree with, I think John makes a very good point. I'll make a motion and then we can proceed from there, and I'm certainly open to adjusting it with additional feedback. So I would propose that we pick out the Search and Rescue and Crossroads, and we set those at $250. Again, we have no request from them for a specific amount, so I would set those at $250. I would recommend the others be as requested, the amount that they have requested. And then those that leaves unresolved, I would set at 150.
I've got my head down just because I'm trying to pick up, and then Anmore Elementary would be the 250.
Yeah.
And then the remaining ones would be, was it 150, Bruce?
I'm suggesting 150, yeah, for those that are one-offs. I think they're deserving. I guess I'm conscious in all these cases is what we're doing is levering volunteer time
Yeah.
for people that are trying to serve the
Okay.
community, and that we don't have a massive number of requests here. As I total those, it's 6, 7, 850. 1,000. It looks like it's under $2,000 even at that.
Okay.
Ken will have that. Ken will have that totaled already, I'm sure.
So do we have a seconder to that or, okay, Councillor Clark? So it's on the floor and do we want to, Paula, were you successful in getting that? Were you?
Yes, we have it, yes.
Okay, because I've got it too, but I know you'll be way more accurate than me. They'll probably get more money with you doing it. So any discussion? Any, Councillor Drake?
Yeah, just that I calculate that as 1,553 in total. So it's more modest than what we did last year so far. So.
Okay, good. And the other councillors, you're feeling all right with what's on the floor right now? I think we may have Councillor Snell, please.
Thank you. If we could be a little more generous for search and rescue and Crossroads, I think that would be appropriate.
Okay, so why don't you give a suggested number and let's see if we can do it by unanimous consent, right?
Okay.
Agreement, right? So why don't you pick a number and then
I would pick a number of 500 each.
Okay, for
Crossroads and for the search and rescue.
Right.
I mean, they provide a service 12 months a year. So if it adds up and we have the money there, then I'd be okay with that. Thank you.
Okay, so it's the property of the meeting, but is there, Bruce, are you fine with that?
Yeah, as I say, I'm quite happy to yield to any proposal council's more comfortable with. I should note, though, in fairness, that I missed the fact that we have typically given the Barnacle 1,500, so it's no longer, substantially less. If we end up giving 1,500 to the Barnacle this year, we would be in the same neighborhood with John's recommendation, same neighborhood as we've been in previous years, but not less. We're still between 3,000 and 3,500 roughly.
Okay.
So just clarified my earlier comment that this was in fact not even at the level of previous years. It will put us at about that level. And yes, I am in favor of John's proposal.
Okay. So let's just see if let's separate them, see if John's proposal first has unanimous agreement by people to have it. So I see, Carolina, are you in agreement with John's?
I'm in an agreement, but I would further suggest that we review, maybe not this year, but next year, the Barnacle grant.
Okay, let me just we'll just tolerate that and then I'll come back to you on that. So everybody's good. John, you're obviously good with it. Carolina, you're good with it. Councillor Wilder, you're good with it, and I'm good with it. So we've got agreement on that. And then now rather than amending, we're looking at something. So I'm going to come back to Councillor Clark and then Councillor Drake to talk about what either may want to be doing about the Barnacle and what we may as a group want to do, because if we have unanimous consent, we can do it, but if we don't, we should move an amendment. So Carolina, is it okay if between you and Bruce, if I go back to you first, because I did say I'd come back. So on the Barnacle, you mentioned something?
Yeah, I would be more comfortable if Bruce put his thought in first.
Oh, okay, that's fine. No.
If that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. I kind of said I'd come back to you. So Bruce, you're next.
Well, I don't have any particular observation to make about the Barnacle, just that it has historically appeared as something we've supported. I'm supportive of it, and it's not in this list. So whether they just come in at a different time in the year. Perhaps Lorna could clarify that for us. I'm just surprised it doesn't appear.
Yes, and I must admit our budget is definitely at a different time this year. And that could possibly be why it hasn't been included. But yes, every other year it has been for that amount. Mhm.
Yeah, and I guess I'm just saying in terms of if I'm supporting this, I'm silent on the issue of the barnacle. I just don't have a proposal from them. So I'm not indicating any negative or certainly no negative direction toward them. Thank you.
Okay, and then I'll go to Councillor Clark and then Councillor Wilder. Thank you, Councillor Drake.
So to my recollection, the grant to the Barnacle was approved already, so I'm not suggesting to change that this year. I'm suggesting to do it next year. So I'm okay with the proposed amendment or the proposed motion. I will be supporting it.
Okay, now, sorry to interject, but you mentioned that you think the council may have passed an allocation for the barnacle for this budget year already?
That was my understanding. It was just a comment, but
Okay.
I will refer that to Lorna because
Okay.
I remember talking about this not too long ago. It might have been in one of the meetings that Councillor Lisa Wilder was the deputy mayor. Thank you.
Your worship, I don't recall that a motion was passed in that regard. Do you, Ken?
I don't remember a motion in that regard.
No, I don't, sorry.
And
We have talked about it, but I don't think we had a motion, your worship.
okay, no, fair enough. And maybe we'll go, Councillor Wilder's on the list next, so we'll go to her if that's all right. Councillor Wilder?
Thank you. No, they never approached us formally for any kind of a grant this year at all. So
Okay.
it's not just the barnacle that's missing, it's the Eagle Ridge Hospital, the Port Moody Secondary. So even with the ones that we have, with the SAR, and I'm in agreement with the increase on all of them as already decided.
Yes.
But I was also going to ask for SERA to be moved up to 500 as well. They've been 353 forever.
Okay.
That was just my own suggestion. And even with those, we would still only get $2,053,
Okay.
not including the barnacle if they approach us. And we may not give them that, we may give them less, or we may get whatever. And Eagle Ridge Hospital or Port Moody Secondary. And maybe they're not approaching us because they're not having their because of us, COVID is possibly why they're not, because they always want it for their dry grad, which they're not having.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's possibly why I'm surprised Eagle Ridge Hospital hasn't. Truthfully.
So,
Sorry, your worship.
Yes.
Paula just brought me a motion that was passed in December of 2020. And the Barnacle Society did receive a grant for $1,500. So Carolina Clark, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, gosh.
I remember having that conversation. So
Yes, so it was,
Yeah.
that already was approved. So
So it's not on the list here.
no, because it's already been approved.
Okay.
We did in
So-
December.
Carolina, another one for you. Thank you
There
very
you
much.
go, girlfriend.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'll say.
That's good team. So,
Sorry, I'm just going to continue
Yeah.
then. So based on, like, if we have a provisional budget of 4,700, gosh, it would have been nice to see them all that were already approved on here, approved ending. That still brings up just over $3,500. But now I can ask the next question then. Was there something passed for Eagle Ridge Hospital or Port Moody? Or Paula Wizard?
Because there would be funds left over, we could pass this motion however you.
yeah.
You can always bring back the other grants if you wish. Just,
What it-
move along because we do have a public
Yeah.
conversation tonight.
So why don't we do this piece? There's one more remaining. And I think whatever it is, it makes good suggestion from Lorna, like, let's deal with that 500 to Sarah and find out if people are fine. And then let's close the motion. Let's vote on it. with the understanding that if someone approaches us down the road, this council has the capacity in a meeting to make a decision if they would like to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is that all right if we just kind of, so Lisa, you've put on to increase 0 to 500. So I'm gonna, you're in favor. Carolina Clark, are you fine with, and Bruce, are you fine? And John?
Yes, okay with
And I'm
that.
fine. So we have unanimous consent. We have a motion on the table. And Paula, you're comfortable with the motion, and Lorna, you're comfortable with the motion we have on the table?
Yes, your
So
worship, I am. Mhm.
I will, at this point, call the question. All those in favor, please say aye and raise their hand.
Aye.
And it looks like it carries unanimously. If Bruce, did you have your hand up?
I did, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you very much. Sorry, I just didn't catch. Okay, perfect. Thank you, and thank you for your good work, everybody, on
Thank
that. And some great suggestions by people. And then we're going over to 5.3. Ken?
Hey, Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna share my screen now.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
And you guys could just tell me when you can see my screen.
We can see it now.
Yep.
Oh,
No,
now
we
it's
could.
gone.
How's that?
That's good.
Yes.
Okay. So tonight we are looking for feedback and comments from the public on the village's 2021 to 25 financial plan draft or provisional plan. And our goal is to, I'm going to outline the scenarios that council has indicated they would like to see in terms of putting forward for public comment. And then we are going to open the floor up to the public and give them a good opportunity to ask questions, and we'll do our best to answer all those questions as well as possible. So the plan is to give a short presentation and move it forward to the public for comment. First of all, at the last meeting, council requested, as we can see, 3 scenarios be brought forward for the opportunity of the public to comment on. The scenario A, and there's a budget document attached to this report which provides greater detail on the budget, and scenario A is reflected in that budget document. And it provides a lot of other information regarding the village's finances, including comparative taxes and finances with other communities as well. So the 3 scenarios that council requested be brought forward are scenario A, which is a 5% increase in property taxes in 21 and each year thereafter in the plan to 2025, a 10% per annum increase in water user rates for those same years, 10% increase in the ward user rates for those years as well. That would be scenario A. Scenario B would include is a 7% increase in property taxes in 2021 and each year thereafter, a 12% per annum increase in water user rates, a 12% per annum increase in ward user rates. That would be scenario B. Scenario C is a 10% increase in property taxes 2021 and each year thereafter, 12% increase in water user rates in 2021 and each year thereafter, and a 15% increase in ward user rates in 2021 and each year thereafter. I just want to indicate that there is one change that has occurred to the budget subsequent to writing this report. There is savings of $24,000 that has been achieved in the general operating fund. And that money would now be available to allocate to reserves. So that would be a change that has occurred subsequent to writing this report. So when we look at the bottom line results, we can take that into account in terms of having $24,000 extra of money available to transfer to reserves as a result of that savings. So if we look at this page of the report, we can see that the scenarios are outlined here and the bottom line impact of those scenarios. So we can see here that scenario A, the 5% increase in taxes, 10% in water user rates, and 10% increase in ward results in these bottom line transfers shown here, or transfers to surplus, and in the case of ward, transfers from surplus. So for example, in scenario A, there's $387,000 available for transfer to the general reserves, including community gas tax funds that are automatically transferred with a 5% increase in taxes. In 22, there would be 468,000. In 2023, there would be 569,000. And in 2024, that would be 620. I can't quite see this number, so I'm going to memorize the screen here. And in 2025, there would be 670,000 available for transfer. In water, which reflects the 10% increase in water user rates, there would be 25,000 available for transfer in 2021, 41,000 in 2022, 25,000 in 2023. And in 2024, there would be 77,000 available for transfer. In 2025, there would be 114 available for transfer, 1,000. And ward, as we know, ward requires some support. So with the current increase of 10% in ward user rates, we'd have to transfer $13,000 from the ward surplus to subsidize the operations until we built rates up to a sufficient level, as you can see is happening in these latter years. So under the 10% scenario of ward increases, there would be $1,000 that have to be transferred from surplus in 2022, $3,000 in 2023, $9,000 in 2024, $23,000 in 2025. So the bottom line transfers with all of the operating funds with the scenario A would be in 2021, a budgeted transfer total of $399,000, but we have to remember that the transfer would be $24,000 more than that based on the savings I've just outlined earlier. And then these numbers again would go up by the 24,000, but you can go to 508 all the way to 807,000, 100,000 in 2025. So under scenario B, which is a 7% increase in property taxes, 12% increase in water user rates, and 12% increase in ward user rates, you can see that the transfers jump up. For example, in 2021, in general operation, the transfer becomes 404,000 and builds up to 781,000 in 2025. And in water, with the higher increases from going from 10 to 12, the transfers go up to 29,000 in 2021, 51,000, 41,000, 101,000, and 147,000. And in ward, you can see with the 12% increase in the user rates that you go from a subsidy of 13,000 to a subsidy of 11,000. And then in 2022, with the higher user rates, you're able to transfer money to reserves as opposed to having to transfer from surplus of 4,000, and it builds up to 42,000. So again, these numbers would go up by the $24,000, but there are more money available bottom line as a result of these larger increases that you see here. So scenario C, which reflects the higher increases yet again, has a 10% increase in property taxes. The water rates stay the same at 12% increase and a 15% increase in ward user rates. You can see here with this scenario that the general operating fund transfers in 2021 go up to 430,000 and build up to 964,000 in 2025. The water transfer stays the same because the rates are still at 12% in scenario C, the same as scenario B. And in ward, the transfer in 2021 from surpluses now went down from 11,000 to 7,000, and the transfers are able to go up higher so that there's money being transferred in 2022 at 12,000, 2023, 20,000, 44,000 in 2024, and 72,000 in 2025. So you can see the bottom lines again are increasing for the total of all the transfers because of the larger increases in property taxes and the larger increases in the ward user rates. So if we look at those scenarios in terms of how they impact an average assessed value home in Belcarra, you can see in this table that there's the three scenarios reflected here. And the average home price that's being used is $1.987 million, which is very similar to Anmore. You can see in 2020, for a house that was connected to the water system, they paid for property taxes, water user fees, the water parcel tax, and the waste and recycle user fee, a total of $5,200 for all of those items. And for a home that was not connected to the water system, they paid approximately $4,900 in 2020. So under scenario A, which is the 5% property tax increase and the 10% increase in the user rates for water and ward, the taxes on that average home would go up to $5,500 approximately, a $287 increase per year for the taxes and the user rates. And under a non-connected home to the water system, the taxes would go up to $5,186 or a $254 per annum increase. So we see the effect of a 7% increase in property taxes, a 12% increase in water user fees, and a 12% increase in ward user fees would result in taxes and user fees going from $52.66 to $56.39. And that would be a $373 increase for taxes and user rates. For a house connected to the water system, for a non-connected house, the increase would be $333. And we can see under scenario C that the increase for a 10% property tax increase, 12% for water user rates, and 15% for ward would reflect a $57.34 tax bill, which would be an increase of $468 for a house connected to the water system. And you can see also that under a home not connected to the water system, the total bill would be $5,360 or a $428 increase. So the major impacts, as we went over at other previous budget meetings of the impacts in the various funds, of course, in water is the cost of the water that comes from Metro Vancouver is going up, as is the infrastructure or conveyance of the water from the District of North Vancouver. And the other impact, of course, is a large increase in water usage that is causing an impact in the water operating fund. The fact of the matter is, as we've indicated at the previous budget meeting as well, that there is now a more of a fair share of costs that is being allocated from general centralized support to water, which is causing an increase in costs in the water area as well. There are impacts that are affecting ward as well. The major impact in the ward area is the increased costs for the collection disposal of organics, recyclables, and garbage from the depot is having a major impact. And the other impact in the ward area, of course, is the same centralized support that is now being allocated from general to ward. The overall impacts of reallocating centralized support are a fairer way of sharing costs among the 3 operating funds, including MRN, which is the major road network, which is paid for by that TransLink grant that Shazana indicated earlier, the O&M. So in terms of the financial plan, the allocation of costs to the operating areas is being phased in over 3 years, from 2021 to 2023 at 50% in 2021, 75% in 2022, and 100% in 2023, which of course means that there is more of an impact in 2023 when the full allocation of shared costs is realized. So there is a lengthy budget document that is provided in this agenda, which outlines very much the details of the village's plan, which as I said, reflects scenario A. But it highlights all of the impacts in the various operating funds, including the ones that I've just indicated now. And we would like now to hear from the public to see what questions and comments they would have on the proposed scenarios. And then we could talk about council's direction in terms of moving forward with a financial plan bylaw. And the plan would be to bring forward a financial plan bylaw for initial readings on April the 26th, because we have to adopt a financial plan bylaw and a tax rates bylaw by May 15th. I think the wording in the legislation says before May 15th. So at this stage, Mr. Mayor, I think we could turn it over to the public, and or if council had any other questions as well.
Sure. Thank you very much, Ken, for going through that. So why don't we do this piece, find out if council has any questions or observations, and then
May I just
yes,
interrupt and ask if Ken could take his document down so we can see the participants?
sure.
Thank
Oh,
you.
sure, yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Stop sharing?
Yes.
Right, and
Thank you.
and I'm also gonna I'm just gonna segment it into one piece right now. I'm gonna see if there's any feedback from council, and then I'm gonna suggest, with the support of the whole meeting, that this may be a good time to take that 10-minute break after we hear from council, and then come back and then go for it with the public, because we're right about 9 o'clock, and we did promise people a 10-minute break to just be able to take care of things. So why don't we hear from council? That will may or may not get us close to 9. And then if it does at around 9, once we've heard from council, we'll move forward. That makes sense to people? Okay, so I have Councillor Drake. You want to start off with anything from council?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Ken. First, Ken, thank you for the summary. Very helpful. I think all of us are conscious of that the long-term challenge we face here is building up our financial reserves. And I think that's quite clear if anyone is interested, that they, if they move to the back of your next document, which laid out scenario A, which was the 5%, 10%, 10% scenario, so the lowest increase. Can I just ask to comment on that as a financial professional? Do you see that as the principal purpose of the 5-year plan that we're putting forward?
Yes, I would see that as being vitally important to the future of the village and its sustainability, should I say. The buildup of reserves to be able to replace and renew its assets, and to put aside monies for newer assets as well is vital to minimizing debt and to being able to be self-funding in the future. You know, there are the village has quite a list of assets in all areas, from vehicles to storm sewers to water infrastructure to etc. that, as we know, will need to be replaced. And to do that with the ability to minimize or avoid borrowing will require some buildup of the reserves. And as we can see, you know, the village's reserves are very small comparison to some comparable communities as well. Clearly, as is indicated before, you know, the village is in a net debt position as well, at about, I believe, about 1.4 million, whereas the comparable communities are in a net asset position, which you know, tells you that the reserves do need to be built up so that the village can be on a more sustainable level.
Thank you, Ken. If I might, yeah, and when I'm looking at your comparative data, I see that our net financial asset shows as a negative 2.125 million. So negative 2 million. You just clarify for me that that includes the water debt, which is sitting at about 3.6 million. Is that correct?
That's right. And so that was a 2019 number.
Right.
We've just concluded the 2020 year end, so it has went down substantially in 2020 because of the larger increases in user rates and taxes in 2020, and because we have paid down some debt as well. Yep. So it is moving in a positive direction, you know, and sometimes it becomes a case of how fast you want to move in the.
And I think that, yeah, thank you. That's the only point, and I'll end on that. That really the decision that's being made here, in my opinion, and obviously I look forward to hearing from participants, is how urgent is it that we move quickly to begin to build up these reserves? Can we afford the time of multi-years, and you show a substantive benefit from a steady, relatively modest set of increases? Or is it urgent that we move more quickly, which obviously brings you into your other scenarios? That's it for me. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Drake, and I've got Councillor Clark, please.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. Just as a point of information, I do agree with the comments that was made by Ken, also by Councillor Drake. It's a question of how fast do you want to achieve that more sustainable financial position. I would note though, because although we count water systems and roads and all that as assets, technically you can't sell your roads, you can't sell your water system. So I understand that in a municipality point of view, those are accounted as assets, and I'm not questioning how this is accounted, but I will make a comment that to me, that more than an asset, that's a liability as well, because there is a deficit infrastructure debt for all of them. Like Ken said, they will need to be replaced. So, you know, in the sense of when you look at the budget, I guess, at least for myself, when I look at the budget and I see the list of assets, I think the list of assets that I would consider an asset at the moment would be things that you can sell if you get in trouble. And like I said, you can do that with the roads. You can do that with the water system. So I'll just leave it at that for now. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hear the residents' comments on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Clark, Councillor Drake, and seeing from any other councillors right now. So we are at 8:54. So if we could just essentially stand down for 10 minutes and we'll come back and we'll pick up at the 10-minute, just once we hit 10 minutes, and we'll move forward with moving to the audience. Okay, makes sense for everybody? All right, so I will start the timer. Thank you.
Ken, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Along the bottom.
yeah, I've tried that, Paul. I don't seem to be able, it doesn't pop up.
Okay, move your mouse to the bottom of the screen.
Yeah,
And then do you see where it says participants?
yeah,
Okay, see where it says reactions? It's a little face
yeah, I'm clicking on that.
and it's not, and
It's
the hand
coming up
is.
with a clapping or a.
Yeah, and at the very bottom, it says raise hand.
Don't see it. This is the first time I've had that problem.
Okay, so it may be, let me see if I've made you. Yeah.
Just under reaction.
Yeah, he tried that. Okay, Mayor Ross.
Yes.
Ken can't, for some reason, his raise hand is not available. So will you just put the wave then, Ken?
Yeah.
Yeah, I will, let me see here. I will do a thumbs up. How about that?
If you need to speak?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're comfortable with that? I can do a wave too if you kind of give it this.
Okay.
Yeah, hold up your hand and I'll tell you if just hold it up your literal hand right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you come back, yeah. So if you get it in there, I'm perfect, then I'll grab you.
Okay.
I don't mind doing that for you at all. Thank
Okay.
you. Okay. So I think everybody, I want to thank you for taking that break. We've had, in particular, the staff and the counselors working for quite a while today. So thank you for that. And we will look to, council's very interested to hear the views of the public and the audience. So we'll move towards, and I'll watch for the screen to try and pick people up as they come through. Okay. So if you just raise your hand and then we'd like to hear your comments. And we also have Ken available if there's a specific question you'd like to ask. Fair enough, Ken?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, good. So we've got a great contingent of people out. Anybody in the audience would like to offer comment? Observations?
Maybe they're still on break, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I'm wondering.
You're a minute early.
Oh, am I a minute early?
Yeah. Oh, now it's right on time.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah. So why don't we take a minute or two just so, because people were good to give that break. The one time I start on time. Anyway, thanks. Let's we'll take a sec.
Yeah, you went off at 8:55 and it's just 9:05 now.
Yeah.
Oh, it was nice to stand up and walk.
I've been doing that. I go behind my computer desk. I can hear the meeting, but I'm walking, just hurts my knees to sit too long.
Yeah. They say sitting is not a good thing for us.
No.
Not that we ever do it, or all the dedicated council participants from the audience, right? Like.
Well, there we go.
Okay, let's all right, everybody. I believe that we're now at the time of resuming the meeting. Want to thank everybody and want to certainly on behalf of council invite anybody from the audience to make a comment, a thought, observation, to ask a question. We've got Ken who is with us and would be very open to answering any questions. And we're just, I just want to check people are back from break. So Larry Carlson, are you back from break?
They're all on mute and none of
Yeah.
them had their videos on at the beginning anyway.
Yeah, no, I know that piece. I'm just.
Very few.
Yeah, so I guess maybe what we have is,
We're the same number of participants as when we left.
yeah, no, I see it that we're.
Oh, there's Klaus.
Yep, there's Klaus. So he's back.
Oh, Dave Goodman's got his hand up.
Dave Goodman. Please go ahead. Welcome.
What I didn't see in the presentation, Ken, was the cumulative effects of the different scenarios. Could you lay that out for us? So after 5 years, what's the cumulative effect? What would my parcel tax proportionally go up by? I think that I'm not too concerned about the other two, but those ones. Can you just give us that information, please?
So you would like to see if annually under a specific scenario, the increases were cumulative, what the total impact would be on a house?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I specifically don't have that right in front of me right now. It would take a little bit to come by. But if we go back to the screen sharing, maybe.
Sure. Well, why don't we do that? If you're able to walk us through, I think it's a good question and I'm sure others may be interested too. So Paula, if you're.
Okay. Are we back on screen sharing?
We are.
Hold it. Just trying to. Just having a technical difficulty for a minute here. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, I can. Others? Yep. Oops.
So what we're saying here is that basically there would be a compounding effect. Let's say on scenario B here, where these property taxes would continue to go up 7% per annum. And that would have to be taken out over to all those years. Now, having said that, you know, the property taxes, of course, get revisited every year as well. So this could be multiplied by 7% each year, for example, and then you would arrive in 2025 at a total property taxes for an average house. And likewise, you would do the same for the water user rates at 12% if it was scenario B, or the waste and recycle user fees as well. So we would have to run these figures out over those multiple years.
I understand that, but I just wanted to make sure people realize that if you adopted, say, scenario C, after 5 years, your property tax would be over 1.5 times what it is now. Is that correct?
Approximately, yeah.
Yeah. So it would be nice if that was out there so people realize it. That's huge.
So, yeah, for example, using this scenario, right? 10%, you know, it has a compounding effect, as you say as well, right?
Yeah, that's why I said at least 1.5 times, but more actually. Yeah.
So that's
Okay.
true.
Thanks. Point made.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Appreciate that. And thanks, Ken, for being able to respond on that. And I have Charlene.
It's actually Maris on this particular line. This is my wife's computer.
Oh, okay. Welcome,
in-
Maris. Thank you.
In answer to the previous question.
So,
the
sorry, Your
rule of-
Worship,
Oh.
we should have the full name. So that's Maris.
Yeah, can we just, Maris, could you give us your full name, please?
Maris Schultz.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, to answer the previous question very quickly, the rule of 72 applies. Take the interest rate divided into 72, and that'll tell you how many years it takes for your taxes to double. So if you've got a 7% increase, then slightly over 10 years to double your property tax.
Okay. Ken, do you have any comments on that?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Maris. Appreciate that.
No problem.
Thank you. And I believe I have Joe Elworthy on. Next, please. Joe, welcome.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council and Ken for the presentation. Enlightening and informative. Just process is one of my questions. First and foremost, that I guess you'll get feedback from the audience now, and then council will go away, and I'm assuming come back and make a recommendation down the road. I did listen into the debate at the last meeting, and so it's interesting. And I just my comments were similar, I think, to what I had stated previously, and that is that we are. I understand that we need a 5-year plan. We need a 5-year budget. We need to move out in that direction. But we are going through a very traumatic times here, as I've stated previously, and I fully understand that when we're running into certainly issues on waste management that need to be addressed, and there may be ways of helping that out other than increases. I'm not sure that there isn't more could be done on that. On water management, I'm not so sure that we couldn't handle that also with some improvements. However, we get to that. So my preference seems to lie very much with the A suggestion, right? That although it's on the lower side, 5, 10, and 10, I just, given the times that we're living in for everybody and all municipalities going on, and where everybody's involved in uncertainties, my inclination is that I again would be to advise and recommend to council that they look seriously at the times we're living in. There are many many corporations and bodies out there who are indeed running into transition years, rather than put budgets together for the year that's coming up, saying we don't know. We're still all a bit unsure. Things are looking up and down. We never quite know. So with all of that in mind, and sorry for meandering a little bit about this, they're just my comments that I would suggest that council perhaps consider taking to heart when they're coming up with the recommendations for their final budget. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joe, and don't worry, you certainly didn't ramble on. It was good to hear your thoughts, as with other speakers from the audience. And so my sense is that your preference is A, correct? Yeah.
That is correct. Yes, my preference would be A.
Okay, good. Thank you, Joe. And then I'm looking at my screen to see if anybody else wants to come on and share their thoughts or views, or maybe a question as others have done. Okay, I've got, looks like I have Dana and Maris, are you still on? Are you on a new time or are you on from before? And I've got David. Sorry?
New one.
Okay, good. So why don't I go to Dana and Klaus? Thank you. And then we'll come to you, Maris.
Thanks very much. This is Klaus, not Dana.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Klaus.
I just wanted to.
Sorry, may I just interrupt for a minute?
Yeah.
If Ken
Klaus.
wants to put the screen back down.
Sure.
Okay.
People need to see that again, just so we could see everybody. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Thanks very much. Appreciate that. I was
Thanks.
watching from the side so I could see the order, but it's good to see everyone. So Klaus, thank you.
First of all, I wanted to thank Mr. Bjorgaard for his very concise and efficient presentations tonight. And I thought that his graphing in the main document was exceptional. It would have been useful, I think, if we could have seen how the go forward affects the graphs for the presentations made within that document. In other words, where you made comparisons with other communities, how would the go forwards under A, B, and C affect those relationships with our communities? In that regard, I wanted to first make comment that, as either Bernard Shaw may have said, or perhaps it was one other Irish poet or author who said that comparisons are odious. And it has always struck me as unnecessary to compare the budgetary direction of our village with other villages, because comparisons are done for purpose. And I'm not sure what that purpose may be. All the budgets of all the municipalities that have been mentioned in Mr. Bjorgaard's report are budgets that have been accepted by the provincial government, and they are all, as he or the documents have said, healthy. There is no relationship in my mind between the excess that you may have in reserve funds or the excess in any aspect of your budget and health. And in the supporting documents that were provided on the village website in the agenda package, the very last page made reference to a healthier go forward. It's not in the pattern of Mr. Bjorgaard to use such associations, and I would just remind everyone that having more money available doesn't quite, for me, suggest greater health. For example, you could ask a local orthopedic surgeon to add a sixth toe to your foot, but having 6 toes doesn't make the foot any healthier. And I would also remind you that should you decide to add a sixth toe, the shoe may not fit. So in conclusion, I would just support those who have said that option A seems to be the most sensible, and none of the documents that have been provided support moving faster or more forward than option A provides. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Klaus. And I'm going to go to Maris. Thank you. And welcome
Yeah,
again.
Mayor Schultz again.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions, and that is on the far end of the report. There's a page called Projected Reserve and Surplus Balance, and it is based on draft financial plan. But since we have 3 plans in front of us, which one is it based on? Because I believe the comparatives that take place at the end are also based on the draft financial plan, but we haven't picked one yet. So perhaps Ken could make a comment on what this is all based on. Because that page 24 of the report is basically everything. If you take a look at that, you'll know whether we have enough money for emergencies and the kind of maintenance we have to do in the future, or we don't. And the comparatives don't mean anything if we don't have the money when we need it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Yep. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so the budget
Thank you.
document is based on scenario A, the 5, 10, and 10, including those reserve projections that you see there.
Yes.
Now, those reserve projections are based on a current 5-year capital plan, which is in the document as well.
Yes.
And one of the key aspects related to the village, and it's not unlike some other local governments, they don't have a great deal of data on their infrastructure and their assets as to when and how much it'll cost to replace them. So part of one of council's strategic goals is to get more of that information through asset management programs. But so the projections you see there, again, are based on scenario A, and they're based on those increases of scenario A. And they're based on a capital plan that is shown in the document. But the capital plan right now does not truly reflect the full asset replacement plan of the village. When the village is able to obtain better information, should I say, about its infrastructure and its assets, it will be able to build out a much longer plan, right? You can't, in an ideal world, and some communities have moved to 10 or 15-year plans, because that shows you more of a truer picture of what it costs in the future to replace infrastructure and how much money needs to be set aside to do that. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Basically, it's Plan A, and there's no asset management currently in place. So the comparatives are all based on A as well.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Maris. Appreciate that. And thank you, Ken, for your response on that. And I believe we're now with Brian Hirsch, please. Welcome. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to echo David Goodman's observation that the issues are compounded. So we've got our compounded increase rates, and that can be quite significant. So for that reason, I also think at this point in time that scenario A is the more appropriate one, simply because the effects of compounding are really quite startling. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. Do we have any more speakers? And Okay, good. So someone had their hand up, but not hand up to speak, hand up to acknowledge someone's comment. So thank you for that. Okay.
I wasn't sure if Dave wanted to speak.
Yeah, I think I was watching him.
Okay, good.
Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm not too acquainted with this operation yet.
That's
And
okay. Could I just interject just gently and ask if you could state your last name too, just for people?
David Warren.
Yes.
W-R-R-E-N.
Thank you very much.
I can change his name on the screen.
Okay.
Okay. I was going to say I unfortunately wasn't able to catch the first part of the meeting. I did read the agenda, so I hope I'm not speaking out of tune. And the three speakers in front of me mostly stole my thunder. And I think this is not the appropriate time to go for the more aggressive plan. I think the plan A is more sufficient. And the one point I don't think has been mentioned tonight, just one little point, is every year the appraisal on my property goes up. Nothing to do with me. I just live here. The property values go up. That compounding interest is on that. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. Okay, do we have any other speakers from the audience? So we're not trying to wait you out, but sometimes people just take a little while to digest what's been said. And so we'll like to err on the side of giving everybody an opportunity. Oh, David. Welcome.
Thank you. Just to clarify that last comment, it would be my understanding that if, let's say, your property value doubled next year by whatever, for whatever reason, you would adjust the mill rate to be half what it was, so that the actual tax itself would be, so it's an absolute value, it's not a relative value, is, I guess, my point, right? So is that correct?
Yeah, I see Ken's hand, and he's and maybe Bruce too, but let's go with Ken and then we'll pivot to Bruce if he was on the same question. Ken?
Yeah, that's more or less correct. Let's say that there is a 5% property tax increase and your house went up on average, what the average assessed values in the community went up, then you would see a 5% increase overall in your property taxes. But say that your house went up below the average of all the other assessed values and what they went up, you would see a lower increase. And the inverse holds true in that if your assessed value went up higher than the average, then you would see a greater increase than the 5%.
I don't think that answers my question fully, in that it's my understanding that the village is looking at some absolute sum that they want to raise for that particular tax year. And so you figure out what the mill rate is based on the overall assessment of the village. And if the village's assessment went up twice what it is currently, you wouldn't necessarily be paying twice the amount of tax, would you?
That's correct. Yeah. The mill rate and tax rate are the same thing, and the tax rate would be lowered, as you say, to take into account that the assessment has went up. right?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, David. Bruce?
Yeah, I just, further to Ken's comment, I mean, this is the ultimate in relativity when it comes to these assessments, and it's a very common question people have. So I think the first thing you have to bear in mind is that the municipality isn't the dominant source of your tax bill. So whatever the municipality may be, 40% of your tax bill, much of it comes from elsewhere. And in all cases, what David is describing is basically how all the institutions that contribute to your tax, how their taxes are assigned in almost all cases. So that if Belcarra went up 10% every home, then you're not going to pay any more than you would have toward Belcarra than if nobody's homes had gone up, because you're still going to just pick up your share of Belcarra's costs. But if Belcarra all went up 10% and the rest of the tax areas for Metro Vancouver, for example, didn't change, we would all end up paying more of those other tax components. So it's a very murky process, and it's very difficult to predict. I think what Ken has done is about as close as you can get, which tells you what will happen in Belcarra with respect to our taxes. But you do have to bear in mind those other ones can have a significant impact as well.
Thank you, Bruce. And thanks, David. Are we, as we ponder whether we have another speaker, Bruce, Bruce, your hand, Carolina, and then Councillor Wilder, and then Councillor Clark, please.
Thank you. What I was hoping to have, maybe if Ken can speak to this through the chair, is just to make it a little bit more palpable, is what the average increase in the property tax portion would be. We're not talking, not the ward, or, because I mean, that's easy to figure out, but the property tax portion would be per million. So that if someone's property is $1 million of assessed value, what would that potential increase be for A, B, or C? I know most properties are more than that, or if you want to use a $2 million figure or whatever. I know you used 1.9 something million figure earlier, but I think it's easy for people to calculate in their heads if they hear per $1 million. My property then is 2 million, so you can double it. My property is 3 million, you can triple it. My property is 6 million, you can triple the or times 6 rather. Sorry. It's I think it's easier for some people to kind of calculate that part of it. Is that possible for you to speak to that through the chair, Ken?
I'm just going to pull up some information I have here.
Thank you. Mute myself. Appreciate that.
So, as you know, I sent out some preliminary tax rates, right? Under the 3 scenarios, which I'm just pulling up now.
Yep. Thank you.
I don't know if I should share my screen again.
If it would help illustrate your point, I think you should go ahead. We have time.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yeah. So Let me see here. Can everyone see that now?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Ken.
Okay, so our tax increases, our tax rates for each of the scenarios, for example. So you can see here the tax rates for a residential property. And of course, this is per $1,000 of value, right? So of course, you would have to say that this decimal place would go over 3 places, but you can see under scenario A, the tax rate per $1,000 of assessed value would be 1.50681, right? So approximately $1,506 for $1 million home, right? And you can see here under scenario B, you would be paying approximately $1,535 for $1 million home. Under scenario C, you would be paying $1,578 for $1 million home. So to get to the $1 million, you just move the decimal places over 3 places. So for a $2 million home, for example, you would take 1,506 times 2, which was $3,012 approximately, right? And now this is only property taxes, right? That doesn't take into account user rates at all, just property taxes. So that's a general rule of thumb, that these would be the approximate rates per $1,000 of value, which you can get to the $1 million home by just moving the decimal place over. Does that make sense?
I guess what I was looking at is, oh, through the chair, can I speak?
Yeah, absolutely you can. Thank you, Councillor Wilder.
So I guess what I was looking at is to see what the increase would be based on last year's.
Okay, so last year in 2020, right? On $1 million, you would have paid $1,430 in 2020, right? So under scenario A, you would pay $1,506. So I'm just using my.
Yeah.
So $76 difference.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so then for scenario B, we're looking at
1,535 plus 1,430, $105.
$105 versus $76.
Yeah, and under 1,578, 1,430, $148, right?
That's what I was looking for, Ken. I really appreciate you pointing that out. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. So while Ken has his screen up, I'm going from memory, and I believe, Carolina, you were on, and then I've got Bruce in front of me right now. Just while let me just go see if I can. So Carolina, would you like to, oh, sorry.
Can you let me
Councillor
know if
Wilder?
you just like me to stop the screen sharing?
Well, I've got those two from memory, so let's go with Carolina and keep the screen up in case we need it. Again, we'll do Carolina and then we'll do Bruce, and then we'll cast about if anybody else wants to see the screen, and then if no, we'll take it down. Thanks, Ken. So Carolina?
Mayor Ross, I'll save my comments for later because at this point I don't have any questions. It's just some comments. So I'll pass the ball to Bruce. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Drake.
Thank you. And sorry, I don't want to get out of the sequence here. Your worship, I appreciate your trying to get input from the audience. I just wanted to clarify a point with respect to the impact on the average home. So it's not really a question, but I would like to have a brief exchange with Ken if I could.
I think that's fine. And then we'll then go back to the audience after that, but that's appropriate. We've had a couple of counselors and I think they've been good exchanges. So go ahead, Bruce.
Okay.
Or
Thank you.
Councillor Drake. Thank you.
So through the chair then to Ken. Ken, it seems to me you were trying to address this on page 5 of your initial document. That's the one that shows the increase in municipal property taxes, user rate and parcel tax based on different percentage increases. It's the
Right.
5th of 6th in the document you brought forward tonight that shows the 3 scenarios. And there you assume that the average home, which in Belcarra is awfully close to $2 million. And that, and it's close enough that you can call it $2 million. And when you remove the impact of wharfage in Belcarra, which endlessly causes confusion on average house values. So in that case, it seems to me you make very clear under scenario A that the total tax impact, including the property tax, which you cite at $142 increase, the water fee adds 112, and waste and recycle adds 33. What's confusing, I think, when people try to use a $1 million figure is that the water use fee and the waste and recycling fee, they don't change. They don't change by home valuation. They are fixed amounts for every home. So if you totaled all those up, the total tax impact, and then imagined your home was half that and you divided it by 2, you'd be wrong, because it's only the property tax that is conditional on the relative assessment value you have compared to this $2 million average home. And so I think it can cause some confusion. Can I just ask, am I correct if you can follow my description of what you've presented there?
That's correct. I mean, obviously, these tax rates that are showing are only for property taxes, right?
Yes, yeah. And obviously, what we're doing is quite appropriately placing the various services. So the water use and the waste and recycling service, creating those as separate sources of services that have to be funded. And they are funded on the basis of a fee per home, not based on assessed values of the homes. So I had gone through these scenarios and just for comparison, it appears to me that for the average home, that scenario that starts at 5% has a tax impact of 5.5% overall. And that's because those other 2 services, the water and ward, are relatively small, obviously, compared to our overall tax rates. So even though we're jumping them by 10%, the overall impact is that your tax bill from the village goes up by 5.5. And then for comparison, scenario B means 7.1 instead of 5.5%. And scenario C is 8.9% as opposed to the previous year. So and that is based on the description we just exchanged on, in that it assumes that the water use fee and the waste and recycling fee are fixed for every home, and then the property tax varies based on assessments.
That's correct.
I'll stop there. I thought some people might want to have that sense. So I think under scenario A, it's a 5.5% increase in total from the village.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Bruce, and thank you, Ken. And I have David Goodman on again. Welcome back.
Thanks again. So as I look at it, these are, all 3 of them are totally arbitrary numbers picked for convenience sake. But it's really irrelevant. I think it seems to me that the appropriate question might be, under scenario A, after 5 years, would the village be in a precarious situation financially or not? If the answer is no, we wouldn't be, then it seems to me, why would you want to do anything more than that? I mean, are there some grand plans that you want to take to impose on the village such that you need more under a different scenario than the minimal scenario that leaves us in a reasonable position after 5 years? So is there something with respect to scenario A, well, after 5 years, is the village going to be in okay financial position? And if so, why would you want to do anything other than that? So that's I guess not addressed to anybody specifically, but to the councillors and mayors to consider, rather than just looking at arbitrary numbers of increases.
So, David?
Yes?
Can you, it's Jamie speaking. In terms of your question about, are there any plans? I think one of the pieces that explains what could be a plan or could be a factor, and I think in fairness, you've heard it from other probably councillors, plural, is that right now, going back a bit, we have, we're on a list, and you've heard it from Ken too, to be able to hopefully get a grant for an asset management plan. So the piece that's missing right now, and has been missing for a while, is what the plan may be, is we're missing an important piece to say, what's the effect of those assets that we have in terms of not only replacing them, but maintaining them and making them resilient in terms of fire and earthquake and things like that. Like we don't know what it costs to do that piece, and we just don't have that now. We're hopeful, and there's been some good leadership on this council. And I think you'll hear from Carolina. I mean, at some point, we will be able to have those, we'll be able to cost out what it costs to maintain them on a yearly basis. And there was some work done prior, it was never completed. And I think there was an initial look at it, but in fairness, I can't speak with confidence on the first part of the term, but it is a piece that would be the missing piece. So what are the grand plans? We don't have the information to tell us right now, but I believe this council is looking to do that. Bruce, I've got you on. Nope.
Sorry, Jamie, my mistake.
That's okay. You don't need to apologize. It's so do we have any further speakers from the audience? I don't want to rush people, but approximately we're at about 9:51 and we started a little bit after 9. So we're edging up to the hour. So that's my urging to anybody out there in the audience that would like to, I don't want to cut people off, but I think people have done a good job of kind of giving us their thoughts and perspectives. So let's do, if, with the support of people, let's see if it's time for us to come back towards council. But let's take a minute or two, see if anybody's got that last comment about providing us some feedback, council, about what individuals or groups of individuals would like us to do. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody on my screen. And I'm not hearing anybody. So do you want to go back to council? Make sense?
Should we stop the screen sharing, your worship?
Yes, yeah. I think we can.
Good.
Okay, so why don't at this point, we'll conclude the audience participation. We'll thank people for coming on and providing us with lots of information and doing it in a very reasoned way and in a way that I think will help council. So Ken, do you want to just outline what you believe our next steps are right now, just so there's clarity with Carolina, did you?
I'm waiting for when it's time for council to comment, so I'll just leave my hand up for now.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Ken, can you describe to us, just clarify again what you believe council's next thing to do is right now? Not what it should do, but just the next step, just so there's clarity.
Yeah, so the next step is for council to consider the public comment and consider any other feedback from each of the council members, and to give direction to myself and staff as to what scenario to go with in terms of a financial plan bylaw.
Okay, good.
In the recommendations, there's some blank spaces there, but that can be simplified quite a bit by just indicating scenario A, B, or C in terms of what council would like to see in a financial plan bylaw.
Right. Okay, good. So why don't we open it up for our council discussion?
So.
Yep.
Go ahead, Mayor Ross.
Yes, you can. Absolutely. You've had your hand up the longest, so you get first spot. Thank you, Councillor Clark.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for the comments. Thank you, Ken, for the presentation. So I just have a few comments here based on the comments that I heard from the gallery and from things that I was thinking in my head while I was listening to everybody. So I guess it's important to point out that at least for myself, when I look at a situation that we're in, one of my main goals here is to build up the reserves, but not build up the reserves in the sense of, hey, let's leave the money there for anybody do whatever they want with it. It's more in the sense of addressing the existing infrastructure deficit that we have. So when I look at the reserves, I don't see enough money there to do all the work that we need to do on the roads. I don't see enough money there to address a tank that's aging or a water system that's aging. And this is why I think it's so important to have the asset management plan. So we have exactly the feedback from that document would put us in a much better position in order to make those decisions on how much money should be allocated to where. But one thing I do see is that when I look at the books right now, I don't see enough money for all the infrastructure deficit. And I can get into more if people wish. But so when I look at the budget, I think there's two ways to address this. One is through taxation, which is one of our only ways. And the other one is to look at the expenses and being able to cut expenses where council see fit. And I think, it's important to find a healthy balance on both of those things. Also, when we compare ourselves to other municipalities, I think that's something hard to do because Belcarra is so unique, and we don't have a commercial tax base. We don't have an industrial tax base. We purely depend on how much we're spending to run our everyday operation, as well as taxation. So we're just in grants. which is a big part too of accounts for a big part of our budget. So so it's unfair to me when I look Belcarra being compared to Coquitlam or other municipalities that have so much more than we do. So to me, it's, again, like I think it's important to look at the comparisons of municipalities that are similar, but I don't think we should make all of our decisions based on those comparisons. That's how I feel. The other thing I will say is that the financial plan, if the council decides to go, whatever scenario council decides to go with today, it doesn't mean that it's going to be the same scenario in the next 5 years. It's not written in stone. And like Kent suggested, we go back to the budget every year and talk about the budget every year. So even if we put, let's say 15% for next year, we might just do 2%, 5%, or 7% or whatnot. So I wouldn't worry about that part too much. And also I am cautious that that adds up, that it's accumulative. And, you know, and obviously, like, I'm not going to promise you, hey, let's raise the taxes this year and lower next year, because that's just not realistic. So I think we do need to be very wise and cautious, you know, on the increases. Let me see. When I look at scenario A and scenario B, when I look at the increase amount in dollar amount, it's a difference on an average value home is a difference of $86, which it accounts to 7.16 cents a month, a difference from scenario A to scenario B. So right now, after hearing all the comments and knowing what I know and what I learned in the past 2 years, looking at these books very carefully, I think it's important that we stay on top of the increases for the water as well as for the ward facility. Those were significant increases this year. We under budget last year. So to me, when I look at scenario A, it's not an appropriate scenario in my head, in my view. I'm more leaning towards scenario B. Because I think we will catch up with both, with reserves as well as water and the ward facility expenses this year. And like I said, I just wanted to reiterate that I am open to taxation, being reasonable and cautious and careful with that, because it does adds up. But I also like to look at the budget and see where can we save. Where can we save to put into the reserves. And with a lot of our infrastructure also, it is aging. Like we have a fire hall that's 40 years old. We have a village hall that's 40 years old. And I'm not saying those are gonna be a tear down in 2 years from now, but I'm saying that, you know, the buildings are starting to show its age as well as our roads. Only a portion of Belcarra roads are covered through the MRN, which is the Major Road Network grant through TransLink. But we still have roads like Belcarra Bay, like Mitten Road, that at some point will have to be addressed. And the money will be coming from those reserves, which in my head, it's that infrastructure deficit that I believe it's right now. That's where I look at the books and I feel that we really should address this sooner than later. That being said, with COVID and everything that's happening this year, I'm more than happy with scenario B. I might get some heat for that, and I'm sorry, but you know, I don't want to be the one. You know, I'm a family from my family here. We're blue collar workers. We're not super wealthy people, and so when I look at this, I look at, you know, not, you know, I understand Belcarra is a wealthy community, but not everybody that lives here it's a millionaire. So we always need to be aware of that too. And I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Okay.
It's hard time doing budget. I hate to be the one saying, hey, we need to raise the taxes a little bit. I don't like that, but that's what I really believe it needs to be done. And I studied these books very carefully in the past 2 years. So that's where I'm standing right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Appreciate that. Councillor Drake.
Yeah, thank you very much, Your Worship. I found it very useful getting the feedback and Ken's summaries. As with everyone else, I'm sure on council, I'm not eager to be constantly increasing taxes, but the reality is we are going to be in a position when we develop our long-term asset management plan, I think we're going to find that we do not have the tax level that we need, and we're likely to see that within the next couple of years. Having said that, I'm a great believer in gradual incremental growth, because for just the reasons that several mentioned, I think Dave Goodman cited, the compounding impact of even modest increases each year still develops into a fairly substantial improvement in our financial position. And for that reason, because I am confident that over a number of years, this council and subsequent councils will be prepared to take modest reasoned increases regularly, particularly once we know our long-term asset management plan situation. I'm comfortable with option A with one twist, and that is the ward. Ward stands out because it's simply, you see in all of Ken's scenarios, it takes a couple of years before we begin to have a positive impact. And it's relatively small amount of money. And I just think symbolically, I'd want to kick that up from the 10% that exists under option A to 15%, just in order to bring it much closer to being balanced as to its actual projected assigned costs than what we were. And I would point out that is a very minimal amount because it's a small budget item. It amounts to a $17 increase over option A, which I think is obviously doable. So I'm going to opt for A if I have to opt for one. And if I had my way, I would just I'd go 5%, 10%, 15%, just recognizing that the ward category is underfunded for several years under the scenario we're working on. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Other councillors? Thanks, John.
Yeah, I've been listening to everything everybody's been saying, and the point's been made that you know, what we end up paying for our property taxes is made up of many components, and the actual the value of the house is a chunk. But I think what is important is our operating costs on the water and on ward, and I don't like seeing the negative figures in those. So my preference I would be in favor of scenario B.
Okay. Lisa, Councillor Wilder.
Thank you. Wow, Bruce threw another wrench in there. So I just want to be simplistic. We have 3 scenarios thrown out. We've talked about this at length. A, B, or C, I'm not even interested in entertaining another scenario at this point. I'm quite comfortable with B. I think that just levels everything out in the long run. That's sort of where I'm leaning towards. I would love to leave it at A as it was, but we have to start building a reserve somehow. And I don't think that the increase differential between A and B is that substantial, in my opinion, when I'm reading everything, as we have gone through these, like, all weekend, all month. It's just I'm quite comfortable at this point looking at scenario B. I'm gonna stick with that. Sorry.
Okay. So can I ask a quick question through to Ken? Ken, in this plan, as it was from before, what was slated for you this year?
What was slated in the previous plan was a 15%, I believe, increase in taxation.
For this year?
Yeah, I
Okay.
believe it was 15. And I think it was 10 and 10, I believe, in the utilities.
Okay. So on the books coming into this was, in last year's plan was a 15% increase for this year.
Mhm,
Okay, and then 10 and 10 on the two.
mhm.
Okay. So my sense is on this is that I think I'm concerned about the year, and I'm concerned about the uncertainty that people have spoken about. But I also know this, and I wish we had a asset management plan that was in place right now. And I think that asset management plan would be giving us some news that would say that we need to be doing some pieces to build up our reserves, because I worry about the pieces that we know right now that are still functioning. And I think it would be nice, because David Goodman asked a good point, what are the plans? And we don't have a plan, but I don't think we can look and say that we're not going to need some reserves. And my worry is that when we do get that asset management plan, we may be in a position where we actually need to talk with the community, because part of the thing about the asset management plan is it's going to tell you your projected cost, and then it's going to tell you the piece about what you need to do. And I don't think it will be a asset management plan that says we don't have a lot of maintenance and a lot of pieces in terms of going forward. So I'm good with the B, and I say that reluctantly because I'm concerned that we don't have that piece of the puzzle, but I don't think that piece of the puzzle is going to come back and say we don't have things to do. So that's where I would end up. And I think everybody's gravitated away from the C. So.
Councillor Wilder has her hand up.
Okay, go ahead.
Thanks. Just one last comment on that as well, is I think a lot of that has to do with when choosing B is our ward and our water rates. Our water costs actually have just increased exponentially a lot over this section, whether it's due to COVID or whatever it happens to be. But those costs have really increased a lot. And that's where we have to somehow recoup a lot of that dough from there. So that's just my one final comment on that.
Okay. So we need a motion on the floor, correct?
Yes, please.
Yep. So looking for someone to move.
I'll move option B for voting, scenario B.
Okay. And a seconder on that one, please.
John Snell.
I'll call Councillor Snell in a photo finish. Seconding. So we've got an option on the floor, moved by Councillor Clark and seconded by Councillor Snell. Okay, discussion?
I'm just going to say one more. I think this has been very, very difficult, especially during COVID and this difficult year that we've had. We're just such a unique municipality with, not having the same kind of taxation input that or income that other municipalities have, whether it's commercial or recreational or whatever. So it's really, and we're so small and it's very tough. This is the hardest time of the year for all of us as councillors to discuss, to talk about, to make decisions. And wouldn't it be nice if we can say, hey, we're gonna drop you 10%. Wouldn't that be great? But costs keep rising and it's no fault of our own. And if any of you are in business, you're gonna know that those costs are increasing outside. And it's a really tough, hard, emotional decision to make. So that's all I have to say at this point.
Thank you, Councillor Wilder, and Councillor Drake, I have your hand up.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. Yeah, I'm going to vote against this, but I want to say I really do appreciate the conversation. There's no easy way of doing this sort of process. And I think as we've worked together as council, made it very clear that votes certainly don't have to be unanimous. I think when you've listened to the arguments and considered the options that you've got, there is no single correct answer on that. I would prefer a lower increase, but I think your point is probably correct that once we get the long-term capital plan, we're going to see that we have to increase the reserves that we have in order to meet that type of careful and prudent planning. So thank you. I think it's been a good session. It's tiring. These things always are tiring. Happier to move on to more pleasant subjects.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Drake. Anybody else on council want to speak? It looks like we're no speakers, so I will look to call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please raise aye and your hand, aye. And so, and those opposed, please.
Aye.
Yes. So, and John, I caught you as you were raising on the first part, right? On the
That's-
affirmative. Okay.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. And thank you, Councillor Drake. So it carries with the vote of 4-1. So thank you. The affirmative carries. Ken?
Yeah, so based on council's decision, there'll be a financial plan bylaw coming forward on April the 26th for initial readings, which reflects scenario B.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And thank you to all of council, and thank you, Bruce, for your comments, and they were appreciated by all of us. And thank you to everybody in the audience who was part of this process. We appreciate that. Okay. So I have, we're moving on to reports from the mayor and council committee representatives. So I will start off if I can, please. And I have a few items, but I would like to start off and I'll just make some very brief and succinct comments. But I think it speaks to the strength of our staff that we had a person off on leave and we were able to bring someone in, Paula Richardson, who came in and did an outstanding job. And I want to recognize her for her work and her ability to step up. And it will not go unnoticed that what council did, and we didn't do it for this reason, but we actually existed without bringing in another employee. And the reason we did is we had an exceptional employee, which speaks to the skill of people in the past, the hiring. And we also had what I think is the leadership of Lorna in terms of developing people. And as we talk about asset management, I will in the future talk about our responsibility as a council to look at being able to work and develop people. But I would also like to welcome Lorna back from her leave. And I want to thank her for her dedication to the village. I was very careful to not contact her on any occasion. but I did slip once or twice, even though we wanted to give her a full rest. So, and I will say to you, and it will lead into my next update, that on a weekend when she probably shouldn't have been communicating, she reached out to help us with an issue with Canada Post. And so I actually think that that connection between Lorna and Paula is tremendous, and it speaks to the work they do, the work that our employees do on behalf of everybody in the village. So thank you to both of you, and I will just move to, we had an issue with Canada Post, and it was a little bit complicated. I want to give some thank yous to some people. We are still working with Canada Post, and we've received an update from them, and it has been helpful, but I believe it is a type of update that we will be making the move to asking them to come to council and in a general way talk to us about some assurances about what we need to do. Having said that, I want to thank the work of CRAB, who stepped up because of some communications, not particularly on the village part, but stepped up and reached out and helped people in our village to make sure that their mail was able to be picked up. And we had people phoning us from leave, and we had people coming out to the village and checking. And I want to thank everybody in their work together. I would also like to say that it seems like empty words, because I don't think that we should need to empty our mailboxes every day, but I would like to encourage people to do it. And at the same time, I believe our council collectively will work with Canada Post to say we as a village deserve better. So I wanted to make those comments, and as with everything, there's some complexities, but I do believe that we will ask Canada Post representative to come and speak with us. I will now move to our COVID-19 update. Fraser Health has implemented a three-step process for COVID-19 vaccinations. They've got step one, registration, book an appointment, and get the vaccine. And I know that throughout our province, we're facing the chance that we're seeing some better things. We're also seeing some things that are causing people concern. I heard today that the age had dropped down to 55, and we, like any other employer, are not exerting pressure on our staff, but rather we're trying to encourage them to get vaccinations when they can. And we've been very heartened by the people in our village who have been able to reach out. There's both an age and that pharmacy one, and there's a provincial booking. So I think that's very important, and we wanted to convey that. And Paula did an exceptional job of keeping people in touch on our website. It was a real issue of being able to perform. I also wanted to, on HandyDart, just say that TransLink has launched a HandyDart modernization program engagement. So they're actually reaching out to people and say, give us your thoughts and views about what you would like to see happen with HandyDart. And it is a good engagement, and they're looking for feedback. It's April 25th. You will find access up on the website, but I think it's important that those TransLink services are available for people to be able to access, and we would invite you to do that. My final one is very quick. We are working collectively as a council, working with our committees, and we've had a number of meetings, and I really want to thank again the exceptional work of our volunteers on those committees, and really also equally laud the work of our councillors who have been working with those committees. And we are moving through. We have one committee where we have, through no fault of anyone, not been able to engage yet, but we will look to do that, and we'll look to come back with some recommendations. So I want to thank everyone for that. And I would, at this point, if there's a councillor that would like to do any part of their report, they'd be welcome. And I see Councillor Clark, so I'll recognize you and yield the floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Ross, for the updates. I always enjoy hearing those.
Oh.
I do.
Thank
And
you.
so, okay, so just a couple of things. First, I am sitting in one less committee because as you've heard, if you were here at the beginning of the meeting, the Child Force Group Committee that I was at have concluded the work successfully. So I'm glad about that. On the second point, I had a parks meeting last week. And there's two new informations coming from the pay parking in Belcarra as well as Sasamont Lake. So the first is that now we have a daily rate. So before it was just being charged $2 an hour. Now there is a cap on that. So if the person wants to come and spend all day, they could pay up to $24. Now it's capped at $12. And again, a quick reminder that from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m., it's free parking, and then it will be charged after 10 a.m. at a cap of $12 a day. The second very good news about that, it's that TransLink is doubling their shuttling services to both parks. So to Sasamont as well as Belcarra here. So they're doubling apparently on weekdays and on weekends. So that's good news. So, and just to reiterate, I wasn't sure, and I'm still not convinced that paid parking, quite frankly, is the way to go for parks, but that is a decision that I wasn't part. It was done prior to me stepping to the Board of Parks. That being said, it has been successfully implemented in other parks before. So they saw less traffic per se on the parks that they have implemented. And the whole idea behind that was to encourage people to take transit rather than bring cars or carpool or bike here. So, so hopefully with all the steps that Parks has taken, as well as TransLink on helping the shuttling, and also the heavy media presence on that for those informations, hopefully we will see a decrease in traffic. That's the goal of doing this. Again, I'm not convinced that paid parking is the way to go, but this is a conversation that doesn't belong here, it belongs to parks. So we'll see how that's going to work out for us in the high season here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Any other? We'll just, Sherry, we'll come to you in one second. Do you have a specific question to ask Carolina? Councillor Clark? Sherry?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Another piece of news from the park is that they are getting rid of a caretaker. They're going to demolish the building and we will no longer have a caretaker.
That's right. And I just knew that this week. It wasn't even through Parks that I was advised. So I don't know exactly why this is happening. I just heard because the people are moving out, right? The very nice.
It's certainly going to affect anybody who lives near the park.
I agree. I agree.
You know,
so I want to get more information on that and see what I can update.
Yeah, because I mean, it's a very busy park for no supervision at night, or if somebody needs a Band-Aid, you know where they're going to come. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, and especially with the problems that you have, especially for people that live beside the parks, you have the problems of people coming, parking on the roads here, even though the gates closed, and walking in the parks and partying there at night. So we'll see how that's going to work out. And when I get more information, then I'll share whatever I'm able to share with the public.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Sherry. And thank you, Councillor Clark. And we'll just, if there's any other councillors that would like to report out, and seeing none, we will go to correspondence proclamations, and we'll get someone to move and someone to second that correspondent items 8.1 to 8.15 be received. And I see
moved.
Councillor Wilder
second
moving it, and Councillor Drake seconding it. Sorry, I look at one and respond to the other. So it's on the floor. All in favor? Any
Aye.
discussion in favor? Aye.
Aye.
It looks like it's unanimous. Okay, thank you. So we have some action items here. There are two in front of you, and I would like people to, we've had a request from two members of council with the city of Surrey, and they've sent something to us about the Surrey police transition. And in terms of the impact of the public and a need for a feasibility study. And I'm going to go to Councillor Drake on this.
Thank you very much. This is an unusual case. I mean, I personally think the idea of Surrey creating its own police department is unusual enough all by itself. But to have members of one council appeal to other councils to offer, well, I can only imagine criticism of their council's decision just strikes me as odd. When it comes to a service such as police, Surrey is a big city. Surrey is perfectly entitled to make its own decisions, and I don't think it's frankly our business to comment on what their council likes or what is presumably a minority of council feels about that decision. So I'm not in favor of our getting engaged here. I can see a role, frankly, for the provincial government, given their overall authority. I mean, we are, after all creatures of the province. We serve at their under their good graces. And if the province feels that there are problems such as these councillors have flagged and that they're such that Surrey shouldn't move ahead, the province has more than enough authority to deal with that and undertake the very studies that are being proposed. So that's in conclusion, I don't think we should take any steps with respect to this proposition other than to respect the independence of Surrey and their ability to make their own decisions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Clark and then Councillor Wilder.
Just a quick comment. I agree with Councillor Drake's comments. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Wilder?
Thanks. I kind of meant to put my hand down because Councillor Drake said everything that I was going to say. I don't think this needs to be dealt with on a municipal level. It should be dealt with on a provincial level.
Okay, so and that makes sense. Just to clarify, like my understanding is that we will not be responding on that first one, and we'd actually been requested by Ann Moore. So I think we will fashion a letter. We'll work with staff to just simply say on that one, we respect the all municipalities, their right to be independent and pursue their own goals. And does that make sense? So we're not going to respond to the
But do we need to have a motion because it's an actionable item?
I don't think so, Your Worship, because it's been received and we can.
Yes.
Direction.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on that one, so the second piece of this, and Bruce, you alluded to it. Oh, sorry, Councillor Snell, would you like to speak?
Yes, I mean, I agree with everything that's been said so far, but I am a little bit concerned that if it does go ahead, the ramifications on costs to Belcarra. So I think we do need to be in the loop as to how it's progressing, because if it is going to cost us money one way or the other, we should be in that loop. Although yeah. I agree we can't be interfering with their politics.
Yeah.
But insofar as it could affect the welfare of this village, I think we should keep an eye on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So on that second one, in terms of a request from John McEwen around the pieces around that, I think we can just simply, and Bruce, it may have been your point and others, that we can fashion a letter with staff just to talk about that there are some pieces that the province has an official relationship with the RCMP. And if there are pieces that the province wants to do because they are seeing parts that may impact others, and there are some potential ones that could impact Belcarra, that we could work with fashioning something to get the province to take a role rather than being critical, but saying what are essentially the things that are going to come out and have the potential to affect different municipalities that currently rely on the very good service of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Yeah,
so
I agree totally with that. I think it falls quite clearly within a provincial scope And they have the authority to either accelerate or cause this to be dealt with carefully and with a degree of due prudence. And I'm sure they'll do that. But I just don't think it's our business to tell them how to manage their policing.
Okay, so if we can, with staff, we'll look to put something together that satisfies the views of that. So is that fine with all of council?
I'm good.
Okay, that's good. Okay, thank you very much then. And then we will move on to item 8.2. Janet Andrews, Secretary Treasurer of New Westminster District Labor Council, letter dated March 16, 2021, regarding declaration of April 28, 2021 as official day of mourning for workers killed and injured on the job. So I would look for a mover and a second. So moved by Wilder, seconded by Councillor Clark. Thank you. That council declare April 28, 2021 as the official day of mourning for workers killed and injured on the job.
Thank you.
Okay, any thoughts or comments? I think this is just a piece that successive councils have always done in regard to the fact that people leave their home in the morning and they do not come home. So the work that we can do to highlight this and join with others is important. So
I'm going to actually say something here if I can.
Yeah, no, I would invite you to do that.
You know, it's really rewarding sometimes working downtown Vancouver because they do this, and there are memorial wreaths that are put in all of the areas downtown around transit stations and everything about this, and it just brings it to the forefront so that they're not forgotten. The people like on the Iron Workers Memorial Bridge or whatever, wherever it is, workers all over the municipalities of the Metro Vancouver, and you know, you do forget. And so when I get off my transit and I come up the escalator, and there are these wreaths, and they're there for a week, and it's the memorial. It's just really heartwarming, and it's you know, it's good to be reminded of this all the time. Yes, and it's not just saying it's a day, because we say it's a day, but then what do we do about it? We just say it's a day. We don't actually do anything, right? Downtown Vancouver, they actually memorialize this all over the city. So maybe Crab would like to put a notice on or something. I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but just to bring it more to the forefront of people to recognize that people have lost their lives. Yeah, it's sorry.
Councillor Wilder, I think those are excellent suggestions, and I know on our in our audience tonight are people that work officially on behalf of workers and have worked for years to try and do that piece. So I think that's a good suggestion, putting out to Crab, and there may be even something that council wants to do. And I think any attention, and one of the things too that's a really tragic statistic is how many young people are killed on the job. And anyone else? Thank you, Councillor Wilder, for those comments. Anyone else with any? So I'm not seeing any further speakers. We will call the question on to adopt the motion. Everyone raise their hand in favor. Aye. And I would note that it's unanimous. Thank you for that. And then moving to Linda Cuff, 8.3. Linda Cuff, Belcarra Community Council, Mayo, Ireland, email dated April 1st, 2021. And I'm actually at this point going to turn it over to at least one councillor, maybe another one, who have done some work on this very, very interesting project. And thank you in advance to those people. So Councillor Drake, would you like to go ahead?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, Linda Kopp, as anyone who's read the letter will note, is a member of the Community Council in our twinned community in County Mayo, Ireland. I had the opportunity to have a Zoom conversation with her a few days ago after she had her children asleep. I think it was about 1 o'clock in the morning for her. And that she explained to me that their community, which is a very, very active one, and in fact has won awards in Ireland for many years, what they term as a tidy towns project. They have a real fireball there of a local organizer by the name of Mary Pendergast, who was there when Diana and I were over there for the original twinning 14 years ago now. This is in fact her daughter-in-law. And I guess Mary doesn't stay up as late as she used to, but they have, as a group, their little community did not have any type of playing fields. And so they got together and decided they were going to purchase an available field that was near them. It was actually owned by the church in the community, but they fundraised for that a total of 180,000 Canadian dollars and purchased that field over. That took them 4 years, I believe. It's somewhat akin, I guess, vaguely with our raising dollars for our breathing apparatus for the fire department. Many of you will recall that campaign, which raised a substantial amount of money for our small community and with Anmore. In any event, what they now want to do is develop that field. It's basically just an empty field. It's easy enough to find on Google if you have a look at Belcarra, Ireland. And they are going to do work to develop that. And as that fundraising exercise, they were going to do a walk, run, jog campaign. And they came up with the idea of trying to walk the cumulative total of the distance between our two communities, which happens to be, as I look at it, about 7,003 kilometers. They've rounded it out to 7,000. And so they are asking if we could facilitate having some walkers, runners, and joggers in our Belcarra join in that exercise. They just think it would be great for the marketing on their end. So, I mean, I think it's a wonderful process. They are about to finalize their preparation. And Linda, despite the fact that she was up late that night, has volunteered to appear as a delegation at our next council meeting, just to answer any questions people may have. Their process is one, I'm told it's quite a straightforward process to register to do this. And then you're just asked to log the mileage or the kilometers that you've walked or jogged in a given week, and they will total those up. She said they're going to hold off on the bikes because they were afraid if they added bikes in, they'd hit their target far too quickly. So initially, it's bikes are not going to be included. So you're going to have to do it by foot. So what I would ask council to do, I think the recommendation here is perfectly appropriate, that we provide to residents the information they need to register themselves. She was extremely excited that there might be a few people here in Belcarra, Canada, who were willing to do that. And I think as you'll hear from her at our next council meeting, she's a very energetic social local organizer. Now, the one thing I would request, given that they are 8 hours ahead of us, so it's coming up on 6:40 in the morning over there tomorrow, if we were to do this, it would be helpful to her if we could put her on first and perhaps start our next meeting either half an hour or an hour earlier. Just because if we do let's say a 6:30 start, that is, what does that take us to 2 o'clock in the morning? It's going to be at night anyway for her. Probably easier for her to stay up. She seemed perfectly coherent, more so than I would have been at that time. And I would recommend that council consider having her as a delegate, perhaps starting our meeting 1 hour earlier than usual, and letting her go up front so that she'll have her children in bed and she can respond to questions.
Thank you, Councillor Drake. great report and very interesting. And over to Councillor Wilder, who's done some work on this too. So thank you in advance.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Bruce, for taking that Zoom call. I was on the road when she called, so I wasn't able to join in. I might have gotten a ticket.
Yes, or more.
So I was trying to be responsible. And of course it was like quick notice or short notice there on that Zoom meeting, but thank you for taking that. I will approach, and Dave Warren is on the line here. So if it's acceptable with the council, I would like to approach CRAB to possibly facilitate getting information out as well about this, because I feel it's a recreational event. And that's something that
Very
maybe
much
CRAB,
so.
yeah.
In fact, the community association, they don't have a council such as we have. They're a
Right.
little different, slightly different as a community. They're more distributed. It's more like a, not farmy, I guess it reminds me more like an outskirts of Kelowna sort of arrangement. They do have a little town center, but they don't have a council. What they have is this voluntary association. So it's rather like CRAB running all these events. So that's what she's involved in. So I agree with you totally. CRAB would be a perfect match.
Well, yeah, I think that's great. So I would like to contact Dave, who is on the line, so he's seeing this right now. Give him some more information on it, and then we can probably, through Linda and yourself, facilitate a fan out on with all the links on how people can get involved. And I'm not sure if there's a cost involved. I think there was like a donation involved, that kind of thing. And the other thing was, and through the chair to Lorna, if we did have this delegate from Ireland come on, and our next council meeting, which is in 2 weeks' time, do we have to have a motion tonight to change the time of our council meeting? That was a question that I had to have. And
No,
at that point, I'm going to sign off.
Yeah, thank you for that. No, we're fine with that. And actually planning a public hearing for that night. And so, yes, we can start the council meeting an hour early, and we'll just have the public hearing an hour before that.
So could we have her on before the public meeting?
Sure, we could work it out. We'll work it out.
That would help Ireland time.
Fit it in for sure. Mhm.
And her little children going to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning.
And your worship, just
Yes.
point of order, we're going to have a motion to extend the meeting pretty
Yes.
quickly.
Okay, so that's in order, and we don't have much, but we can, if someone from council would like to make that motion.
Well, I'll move that we begin our next council meeting. Sorry, is that what you're after? Or are you looking for an extension?
No, we're a few minutes away. We're at 10:45, so we're short of 11. So we, if we don't get a motion to extend past 11, and I don't believe we need much time. So that was what the reference from Lorna was.
Why don't we
Okay.
go a bit longer and then see in 5 minutes from now where are we at? Could we do
Yeah,
that?
no, that's fine too. So, and I think, Lorna, did you indicate we don't need a motion to adjust that meeting on that night? For
That's
the hearing?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
on
so I
that
think
one,
we just need a motion on that we have on the agenda. Mhm.
Okay, and so we'll keep an eye on the clock and someone being ready if we need it. We may not. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, so just a quick comment. I think, thank you very much, Councillor Bruce Drake and Lisa Wilder for doing that with our fellow Belcarra in Ireland. I just have one comment. I'm super supportive of the initiative, but I just have one worry, knowing how overwhelmed our staff already is. So I would be concerned, what would be the staff involvement?
I don't think any.
Okay, so
in my opinion, I'm not sure, and I'm just going to through the chair and speak to Bruce. I don't believe there's going to be any staff time because this is going to be a community rec. And if CRAB can facilitate it, it's through CRAB.
Yeah, I think there's no reason that it can't be done that way. Basically, probably the only involvement will be facilitating this appearance for Linda Cup as a delegate and responding to questions, and sending out a municipal email as I'm sure Crab will do as well, just explaining to people basically what's involved and how they sign up. And just further to your point, Lisa, Mary's been tactful around costs, but I'm venturing a guess that it's probably going to cost $15 or $20 to be a contributor and to log your miles. It'll all be done online. It's an app world, and it will be automated, I'm sure. So I just think it's a really fun concept, and nice to think we could contribute to some children's activities in Ireland.
Yes, I understand it's a fundraiser for them, and through the apps and what have you, everyone would log their own information. And we would just basically, as well as the very minimal staff time, sending notices out. And again, I'm not speaking for Crab or Dave or anyone. It's something that I will bring forward to them and see if that's something, because that'll be taken to the directors to see if that's something that is a flavor for them, which, it's community rec. So.
Okay,
Well-
so as far as like drafting what's gonna be sent out, then if staff could count on council for support on that, then I'm just trying to make sure that we don't throw too much, but yeah, I'm supportive of the initiative. I just had this one question.
It's mainly just having her in as a delegate at the next meeting to explain everything. And then it would be moved over to Crab after that, if Crab is amenable to hosting something of this flavor.
Okay, and then sending some emails out. Okay, as long as it doesn't take too long to prepare those emails and things like that, I'm totally fine. Again, supportive.
I think it's
cautious. Thank you.
this much.
Okay, that much is perfect. It's a measurement. Thank you to Bruce and Lisa and others for that. And thank you for Crab for contemplating it. And I think there's a motion that we could get for this one, correct, Bruce? You may, or.
Yeah, I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, so I've got Councillor Drake, Councillor Wilder, and the motion is in front of you. Everybody's clear on the motion? So we will vote on the motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and it looks like it carries unanimously. We've accepted those information items and we are now down to new business. So. Any new business?
I do have a question, and it might be fitting
Yep.
for this item. Quickly, we talked about having so there is a budget of 100-something thousand for Mitten added to the budget that we passed. Also for 16,000 for the fence around the tennis court. We talked about making a motion for this to come back to the council prior to staff acting on that. Do we still need that motion or no?
No, we still have the bylaws that will be coming back to council, so there won't be any action until the bylaws are adopted.
Oh, I see. Okay, the bylaws on the strategic plan. Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Just want to make sure that we don't leave that, we don't forget.
No.
Yeah. No, but thank you for the reminder. And thank you. So we have a public question period. Oh, sorry, my apologies. I jumped too quickly. Councillor Wilder.
You didn't jump too quickly. I was late on putting my hand up before you closed off item 8. And is this too late, or can I speak to an information item that was received?
Sure, if you want to do that, you can do that. Yes.
Okay, I guess I could do it under new business, whatever. Okay, so there was a letter that was received. I just have to speak to this. It was a letter that was received with respect to actions or the restrictions that were posted by Fraser Health and
What
actions.
number is it? Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, 8.15. Apologies.
Okay.
8.15.
Thank you.
I just really was really troubled by this letter, this email that came in. And I know I personally phoned staff, and I also know that another email did come in. But I just found that this letter was very inappropriate, and there was, it was insensitive, and there was information in there that was incorrect. And I just want to apologize just out there. Like, this never should have reached staff's hands at all. Our staff, Paula, did everything that she could to try to make an event happen on behalf of CRAB. And I'm not speaking on behalf of CRAB, I'm actually speaking as a counselor. And I was just appalled that this came in that said there was actions of village staff that had happened. That didn't. Paula did over and above what she should have done to try and make something happen. And I just want to put it on record, even though I phoned her personally, I just want to put on record that I want an apology sent to her, that I just want it on record that I'm apologizing, because she never should have been treated this way. She went over and above, and it was because of a public health order, a provincial health order rather, and had nothing to do with her. She tried to make something happen in the village that just didn't happen, and it was impossible to make it happen after not the first order, but a second order. And I'm so sorry, Paula, that you had to see this. I'm so sorry. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Lisa. I appreciate your comments. I was going to go to
I'm done.
someone.
I'm sorry, I'm going to take my hand up. I'm done. I don't
No,
think our
that's-
staff should be treated this way.
Yeah. And I saw someone with their hand up, but I think it was a hand up recognizing the words of Lisa. So I won't go to that person. Is that correct?
I just wanted to point out
Oh.
that we cannot, it was me, Mayor Ross, I guess. I just would like to, oh, sorry.
Oh,
I just-
sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. Sherry, was your hand up to speak or what? Oh, okay. So if I could, and then I'll go to Councillor Clark after, if that's all right. Go ahead. Sherry, please.
Am I hearing there?
Yes.
Oh, or who wanted to speak?
It's
Jim.
It's Jim Chisholm.
Hello, Jim. How are you?
This is actually a question for Lisa Wilder. She's obviously very concerned about the use of how much water we're using. Well, I hope that then she puts up high on her list that we put the water metering in this year. And that'll take care of a lot of the problems. That's about all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Thanks. And going to Councillor Clark right now.
Just a quick comment. We can't overrule provincial and ministerial orders. So that's all I'll say on that. Thank you.
Yeah. No, I think both of you have said it well. And there's a piece too that those weren't optional. Those were about not just simply avoiding fines. They were avoiding people getting very sick or something else happening. And we ask our staff to do things and they do an exceptional job. And that includes Lorna when she was here and Paula when she very ably filled in. So I think we need to collectively talk about what we're doing, and putting staff in the middle of that is just not appropriate. I will say that we'll test right now. We're on public question period. We don't want to cut it off, but do we have anybody else from the public that would like to speak? So Joe Elworthy, Lorna, we're at 10:55. So do you
We
want?
need a motion, Your
Yeah.
Worship.
So we will, I'm looking for, and Joe will come back to you, a motion to extend for,
I'll move to extend until 11:10.
okay, good. Moved on the floor, seconded by Councillor Wilder. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, we were on till, all in favor?
Aye.
And the ayes carry it, and so we're on till 11:10. So Joe Elworthy, please go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Ross. And number one, I should say that if knowing that I had extended this council meeting for 10 minutes because of a short comment I had to make, I would have said, I would have spared you all that time for the evening. But having said that, it's just a comment. It was, I'd like to commend council on the manner in which they conducted arriving at the decision on the budget this evening and on the previous meeting. I may not agree with where you arrived, but I have to say that the manner in which you have done so, all of you, has been commendable. So on behalf of me, thank you very much for that work.
Oh, thank you. That wonderful comments reflecting all of council. So thank you very much, Joe. Much appreciated. And you didn't extend the meeting. We just needed to do that. But I think it was a nice accolade to all of council.
Glad I didn't do that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And so we've got a little time. So if we have some more questions from the public, we'd be pleased to hear from them. And then this is actually, I'll check to see if we've got anybody. And it's also one of those features that we have extended. But if we don't have anybody else wanting to speak, and we don't want to shut people down, but I'm looking at, there may not be any other speakers from the public. And so it would be, I believe, a motion to last call for speakers from the public. I'm not seeing any. So I would say that it would be appropriate for the meeting to be a motion to adjourn at
So moved.
11 p.m. Okay, and it's on the floor. All in favor?
10:58.
Yes, 10:58. So Joe, you didn't extend us. Thank you to everybody. So thank you to all of council, and thank you to everybody joined us in the audience tonight. And we really appreciate your time and your work and your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. It's nice to see. It's nice to see you, Joe. Actually, on camera, you finally put it on.
Oh, hi, Joe.
And Lorna, thank you for coming back. And sorry, it's such a late night for you on your
It
first
was
day.
a really good meeting. Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
happy to be
Lovely.
back.
So lovely to see you. And I will reiterate again, Paula's like a mini you.
Thank you. Thank you. It was very good.
Thanks, everyone.